First of all, today is my husband's birthday, so I'm going to wish my husband, David, a very happy birthday. And then we're going to go to roll call. Kaylee?
Supervisor Arroyo? Here. Supervisor Madrone?
Present.
Supervisor Wilson?
Present.
Mike, you didn't answer. Nobody heard you.
Okay, I'll try it again. Presente.
Thank you. Chair Bushnell?
Good morning again.
Supervisor Bohn?
Okay, can we salute our flag, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I may, through the chair, I'd like to continue with roll call vote today.
That's fine. Thanks, Kaylee. Good morning, CAO Hayes. Do we have any modifications to the agenda?
Good morning, Chair Bushnell. There are no modifications this morning.
Okay, we'll go right into our consent calendar. And we have a couple proclamations, but before we go to those, does anybody have anything else to say on the consent calendar? Supervisor Arroyo.
I'd just like to thank Alex Childers for their service on the Behavioral Health Board. They're moving out of the area and have been a really wonderful contributor to the Behavioral Health Board, bringing a youth perspective and a lot of engagement with the Youth Advocacy Board over the years. So thank you to Alex.
I'm going to read it. Yeah. Okay, then we are going to go to our first presentation, which is a retirement resolution. And Supervisor Bohn is going to do this today.
Get up here. You got the full 30, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. It's a resolution in honor of Deanna Fox. Correctional Officer Fox was hired as a full-time officer on July 3rd, 1995 by Sheriff Dennis Lewis. Whereas on July 17th, 1995, Correctional Officer Fox attended and completed 80 hours of arrest and firearms training at College of the Redwoods. And on August 17th, 1995, Correctional Deputy Fox attended and graduated the Corrections Academy at College of the Redwoods. On June 30th, 1996, she was promoted to the rank of Correctional Officer 2. November 26, 2002, was awarded the Tactical Baton Certificate for recognition of ability, knowledge, and demonstrated. And whereas Deanna Fox has been trained in direct supervision, chemical agents, less lethal force devices, medical and mental health issues in jails, and first aid and CPR. Whereas Deanna Fox has been a valued member of the Sheriff's Office with her positive partnership with our facility medical team, while throughout her career receiving letters of commendation. Whereas Deanna Fox dedicated countless hours during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic to hand stitch over 200 face masks for staff working in the correctional facility. Whereas Deanna Fox has always approached her career in law enforcement with integrity, dedication, most of all compassion for those men and women she has served in law enforcement with over the past 30 years. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors and the staff of the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office hereby commends and thanks Correctional Deputy Deanna Fox for her dedicated 30 years of selfless service to the citizens of Humboldt County and the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. We wish her well in her retirement. Signed by our chair, Michelle Bushnell.
I have to say something?
Here, you first get your Kodak moment.
Okay, Kodak moment.
Yeah. Probably brought her.
Oh, my brother's.
His brother wanting the picture?
His brother wanting a picture?
Well, we know who got the looks in the family.
and Kara, can I get husband and daughter? He's out of here. Thank you.
One group photo? No. Congratulations.
Thank you. The last 30 years. The last 30 years has been filled with excitement and hard times and good times, and the Sheriff's Department has really become a family for me. And I appreciate everyone that I've worked with over the last 30 years, those that have been mentors to me and those that, as I've gotten on in my career, have been able to mentor a little bit and help along when they're starting. So thank you very much.
Captain Christensen?
Yeah, thank you, Board. I'd just like to thank you guys for recognizing Dina today. Again, not many people can serve a 30-year term in the correctional facility. So, and the way that she did it was just like Rex emphasized, with compassion, right? She always treats everybody, her coworkers, those incarcerated, with dignity and respect. She's a second mom to a lot of the staff. There's many staff that have children that have baby blankets that have been made by her. So we really appreciate it. And also, in recognition of this, on behalf of the Sheriff's Office, I'd also like to, if I could, present her with her 30-year pin. Not many of these get given out. Thank you.
Hang on a second. I understand you were able to maybe get her to come back and help out a little bit too?
Well, yeah, she's coming back in two capacities. She's going to come back and work extra help, and she's also going to come back as a volunteer and restart the inmate knitting program for some of our female inmates. So she's going to volunteer her time to do that.
Well, we brought on 3 more correctional people for you yesterday. And I didn't realize how old I was till I looked in the eyes of those kids, and they were so young. But I think mentorship like that and you guys provide is going to be great. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say congratulations on your 30 years. And any time that you have a career and you've maintained for 30 years, it's something. But to do that in the Sheriff's Department, in the correctional facility, you see a lot in there. It's not always fun and games or ever. And so thank you for your contribution to Humboldt County and making a difference in people's lives, and congratulations on your retirement. Anybody else from the board? Supervisor Arroyo?
Thank you so much for mentoring so many folks and being willing to come back and do not only that, fill in some gaps, but also help support that knitting program. It's so wonderful to hear about, just that contribution. It's always great to hear about, not only the career highlights, but how each person brought their personality and the nuance of their skills to the job. So thank you so much for that, and I hope you have a very happy retirement.
Supervisor Wilson?
I'm always impressed and thankful for long-term civil service. Really appreciate it. It has such value. It's really exponential. It grows in value to the community every year with that experience and commitment. And, it just takes a lot keeping civil society together. And without the commitment, I just have to say, so many people who work in public service could make more doing other things. But really, most of us in public service, and I really speak when I say us, I mean really the people on the ground doing the actual work in the institutions and out in the streets, that value lives with them every day, and it's something that I'm just very grateful for your commitment to this community.
Okay, well, thank you and congratulations again, and to your family as well, because it takes a whole family that supports someone for civil service. So we are going to go on to our next proclamation that comes to us from Supervisor Arroyo.
Hi, Director Hoffman.
Hi, good
to
morning.
see you. This proclamation is in honor of Child Support Awareness Month. Whereas August is Child Support Awareness Month, an annual time to raise awareness about a critical income support program that helps millions of children and families. And whereas in fiscal year 2024, child support programs nationwide collected $26.67 billion and served 1 in 5 children in the United States. And whereas in fiscal year 2024, the State of California Child Support Agency distributed almost $2.5 billion to families. And whereas child support is recognized nationwide as one of the most cost-effective government programs, collecting over $4 for every dollar spent. And whereas the Office of Child Support Services, OCSS, is rated as one of the most effective anti-poverty programs, reducing child poverty by 7% nationwide. And whereas in fiscal year 2024, our local child support program distributed $9,765,861, got to get that exactly right, directly to families in Humboldt and Trinity counties. Now therefore be it resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors proclaims August 2025 as Child Support Awareness Month and commends the team of Humboldt Trinity Child Support Agency for their commitment to serving the families in our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Supervisor Arroyo and board members. I just wanted to just say a couple things. I'll keep it brief. I want to thank you so much for this proclamation recognizing Child Support Awareness Month. I appreciate the support and recognition of our department's work this year. I want to take this opportunity to thank our staff. It's their hard work and dedication that make it possible to serve the families of Humboldt County. And this is a good time to also mention that we have a space at the courthouse now. We are going to be up on the 3rd floor. We will open that up Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 4 starting in September. And then we'll see how it goes, if we have the resources and if we are getting some good traffic and able to serve our public better in that location, we might expand those hours. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Okay. Well, thank you, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for Supervisor Arroyo for the proclamation.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one, which comes from myself, and this is a Humboldt County Board of Supervisors resolution in honor of Robert Bob Pryor, who passed away. We did we closed in honor a memorial of him quite some time ago, but today he is being honored at the Humboldt County Fair at noon with a dedication. Today is weigh-in day, and he was an integral part of the fair for many years, and I think Supervisor Bohn will talk about that in a minute. But whereas Robert Douglas Pryor was born on May 22, 1932 in Fresno, California, and spent his formative years in Eureka, where he would begin a lifelong commitment to leadership, service, and community. And whereas Bob was a proud graduate of Eureka High School, where he served as student body president and later earned his undergraduate and law degree from Stanford University, building the foundation for a distinguished legal career that would span more than 6 decades. And whereas Bob served honorably in the United States Army from 1957 to 1963, exemplifying integrity, discipline, and civic duty. And whereas Bob returned to Humboldt County to establish a lasting legacy as both an attorney and a rancher, balancing his legal practice with his love of the land, co-founding D&B Cattle Company and riding horseback on the trails of Blacksburg, the Lassicks, and Pipe Creek. And whereas Bob was a dedicated public servant and community leader serving on the Humboldt County Fair Board for over 60 years, actually 62 years, including as president and holding the longest tenure ever recorded in the California Fair Association. And whereas he was a profound member of the Eureka Rotary Club for over 46 years, served as president of the Ingomar Club, and co-founded the Christine and Jamal Berger Foundation to support philanthropy throughout the region. And whereas Bob Pryor was a man of quiet strength, deep compassion, and unshakable values, whose devotion to family was evident in his 54-year marriage to his beloved wife, Louise. His role as a father, stepfather, grandfather, and great-grandfather, and his continued presence at the milestones of those he loved. And whereas Bob lived his life with grace, humility, and purpose, leaving a legacy that will continue to inspire all those who had the privilege to know him. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors does hereby recognize and celebrate the life of Robert Bob Pryor and expresses its deepest gratitude for his decades of service, leadership, unwavering dedication to the people and lands of Humboldt County and beyond. So my grandfather was a local rancher in southern Humboldt, and Bob was a rancher down there as well in Pipe Creek and in Blacksburg area. They were friends. Ranchers sometimes stick together, and as a young girl, I remember him fondly, and also remember him as being, pretty tough as nails as an attorney, and I just am really glad and happy for his family and for Chris that he is being honored today with a dedication at the weigh-in, and Humboldt will miss him, his dedication to public service. When you have committees and commissions that need people, and you have people that commit to 46 and 62 years of being on a board, you get that institutional knowledge that follows with them, and it's just unbeatable, and it really makes a small county go round and round, and so I'm very thankful for him. And I'd like to open it up to the board if anybody wants to say anything. I think Supervisor Bohn will.
I go back 60-plus years with Bob. Bob and Lois used to come into our family grocery store all the time. And back then they had, he had been married to Lois when she passed 50-some-odd years, and she brought 2 children into the marriage, Joe and Sue, and then they had Chris, who a lot of people know and has kept that the family legacy and ranch legacy alive. But yeah, practiced law for 65 years, was on the fair board. God, I was turning to him 30 years ago when I was on the Redwood Acres Fair Board. And always the gentleman, always the gentleman, I think is probably, you could sum up everything. Partners with Tubby and Pryor, and then he hooked up with Don Wallen and started D&B Cattle Company. So anyway, good guy, will be missed, got a shift in.
Yeah. So I wanted to be able to present this today at noon. I am not able to, obviously, because I'm here. So Johanna Radoni, 2nd District past supervisor, is going to be reading the proclamation and delivering it there to a crowd that's of young folks that are weighing in today. Their animals, they weigh in their animals. And I also really want to thank Nikki. I asked her to help me create the resolution that we just read. She captured him very well. And so thanks to Nikki, too, that often does, our COB staff often does a lot of our work for us, and I really want to appreciate them. So we're going to go on to the rest of the agenda. Does anybody have Supervisor Madrone?
Well, yeah, on consent, once again, we have a number of projects being funded by Measure O, and it's just great to see the support from the voters to pass that tax initiative in what are very tough economic times. But here's some more projects rolling out. I know everybody wishes their road could get done like yesterday, but it takes time. But we are seeing progress, and I want to thank the Public Works crews in particular for their hard work in making these happen, along with many contractors in our community that are stepping up to meet the challenge. I know some people are concerned that some roads are getting redone when they seem to be relatively new. For instance, in McKinleyville, there's the Heartwood subdivision and the Heartwood Road, which was built not that long ago. But in that case, it's not Measure O. Those are what's called public road division monies that those landowners that live on that road actually get taxed and pay money in to maintain their own roads. So sometimes it gets a little confusing when you see a road like that getting redone, but just to be clear, that's not Measure O money. That is money from those landowners. But again, great to see roads starting to get some tender loving care. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to go out to public comment on the consent calendar, and we'll start on Zoom today.
There is none, Chair.
Okay, we're going to start in the room. Good morning, Kent.
Good morning, Kent Sawatsky. I did want to speak on item 14. I strongly support what you guys are doing with your employees by taking and allowing the full-time equivalents to be removed. I think the discretion of how that money is spent then, it's already budgeted, should go to the department heads. I see Stacy Eads is in the room today. And I think this is a trend that we should see ongoing, and every department should be offered the opportunity to engage in this. It's kind of a carrot thing. In other words, if Stacy feels somebody's been doing exceptional, she should be able to give them a couple pay bumps or something like that. You know, we do have other people, like I know in the county council office, the name Joel always keeps coming up to me as far as somebody, and this latitude to spend the money is greatly appreciated by the public. We do not like it when that money is brought before you last minute, you know, well, we didn't spend this money this year, so now we're going to go ahead and spend it. And that doesn't seem to be thoughtful. It's not the best use of the public. So I strongly support this as an ongoing process. And just a little bit about the stick and carrot thing. In the private sector, I had an uncle, Jared Swatsky, a very good lawyer back in Kansas. And they can't do what happened to him, but he won a very large lawsuit against Sun Oil. Back then, it meant something. So they sent him down to the Mercedes dealership to get a brand new Mercedes. Pick whatever you want, it's yours. So to be ability for these people, for your staff to give carrots to people, not a Mercedes, but something else as far as compensating them somehow, I think is something that would be a very valuable tool in their tool belt. So they give them opportunity. And I do have something to send up to Kyla Baxley with Stacy there, so I'll get that to her now. Thank you.
Thanks, Kent. Okay, next. Good morning.
Morning. I'm here, speaking about the outdoor lighting ordinances.
I'm sorry, ma'am. So that's an agenda item, and so that is going to be 2 items from now.
Oh.
And so you would have to wait to make public comment at that time. You're welcome to make public comment on the consent calendar right now.
Oh, I thought that's what we were talking about. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning. I would like to address the consent item regarding the recently agreed upon MOU with the district attorneys, actually the County Attorneys Association, which is comprised of both the public defenders, deputy public defenders, as well as the deputy district attorneys. I'm really grateful for this board and the CAO and HR for working so well with the County Attorneys Association in reaching this agreement. I'm very grateful for that. I certainly do see that this is an opportunity that will give me a chance to retain my hardworking, ethical, dedicated team of professionals, as well as potentially to recruit additional individuals. As this board is very aware, that prosecutors are really a unique type of attorney. So prosecutors have the responsibility of a minister of justice, not simply that of an advocate. So they are uniquely different from all other types of attorneys, including different from defense attorneys. The responsibility that prosecutors carry are specific obligations to see that the defendant is accorded procedural justice. The guilt is decided upon the basis of sufficient evidence, and that special precautions are taken to prevent and to rectify the conviction of innocent persons. Our duty is to seek justice. In 2024, the District Attorney's Office processed 6,400 law enforcement referrals, that's police reports. Of those, we ultimately filed 3,792 cases. So only 3,792 made it to the courts. All of those cases are handled by deputy district attorneys. Some are handled by deputy public defenders. In 2024, we litigated 34 jury trials to verdict. Of those, 10 were represented, the defendants were represented by private attorneys. So only about 70% were actually represented by the public defender's offices. Our work goes well beyond the courtroom. We're engaged in investigations. We're engaged in public and community outreach and training and law enforcement assistance. There's been a prosecutor vacancy crisis across the nation. This is not a unique situation to Humboldt County. As much as I'm very grateful for the recommended proposed 15% salary increase, the proposal to deallocate 3 deputy district attorney positions is dangerous. We need every position that we have. My proposal to this board is that this board freeze 2 positions and ask the public defender to make a contribution to fund the deputy public defenders in the salary increase. Direct them to please engage in assistance and bring in external funds to help pay for this raise. Do not make every deputy DA pay for the raise for the deputy public defenders. And the reason this can't be
Stacey,
done
I'm
is
sorry.
it's dangerous.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to this board for a motion, please.
Move consent.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Kaylee?
Supervisor Madrone,
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson,
Yes.
Supervisor Bohn,
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo,
Yes.
Chair Bushnell.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and then we have a time set. Let's see. Oh, no. CAO, do we want to do non-agenda items? Or go, is the 9, what time is the 9 set, the time set? 9:15. Okay, so we'll go right into our time set. And this item is coming to us from the CAO. And I'm going to let her introduce it.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. Excuse me, good morning, thank you, Chair. Before you today is a presentation on the 3rd CSAC Institute cohort, where there are a number of folks who have diligently dedicated their time to 10 sessions of training over 45 hours, which gives them the CSAC Institute credential. So we are very excited about this. This is a great opportunity for Humboldt to partner with CSAC to bring training opportunities to our own backyard rather than traveling all over the state to grow our toolbox of resources to support the county and our communities. And with that, we have Graham Knaus here with CSAC to give a quick update and then present the certifications to the staff.
Okay, good morning, Graham.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about CSAC, who we are, what we do on your behalf, and then I'll invite Paul up here to chat about our foundation and the CSAC Institute leadership program that results in 29 credentials this morning, which is amazing. CSAC has been around for a very long time. We are in our 130th year. So that makes us the 2nd oldest local government association in the country. And as soon as I shut down Pennsylvania's, we'll be the first. So I'm working on it. But our bread and butter is about representing every elected county supervisor in California and ensuring that every county has a voice in Sacramento and also in Washington, D.C. And we do that by balancing rural, suburban, and urban. And that actually is our greatest strength because that means we have the opportunity to leverage urban counties, which have the vast majority of the population, therefore votes in the legislature, to support rural county priorities. And we get to do we get to work with rural counties also to support urban county priorities as well. And there are many things that actually cross all counties that are immaterial as to what the size of your community is. That's our greatest strength. And so our executive committee is specifically designed to tilt urban, so that our board is specifically designed to tilt rural. Our board is majority rural, which means nothing gets through that doesn't work for rural counties. And that's exactly how it should be. That ensures that we are working on your behalf, really to accomplish ensuring that there are sufficient resources, authority, and flexibility in each county to do things in a way that makes sense to that county. And that's different in Humboldt than it is in LA, than it is in Merced, and it's different because it should be. Your community is different, and your priorities are different. Your infrastructure is different. The way you need to do business is different, and so we want to celebrate that in all of our work. That's not easy, because much of the things that occur out of the state of California and often also out of Washington, D.C., want to tell you how to do the work. And our pushback is that it is the state and federal government that determine what gets done and who does the work, and then it's local government's role to figure out how to accomplish that, and then to be held accountable for that. So that's our model, and we continue to push. The legislature just came back. They came back yesterday for their final flurry. So they have 4 weeks left. Their last night of session is September 12th. So all bills must move forward between now and then, or not, in order to take effect. And there are a few core things that are driving our interest between now and September 12th. One is around cap and trade, where there's a reauthorization that is being discussed, and we want to ensure that there are protections to communities included in that. So, for example, where a lot of the carbon challenges come from is related to wildfires and natural disasters, and ensuring that there is front-end related pre-disaster mitigation and vegetation management that is done is critically important, and there needs to be an ongoing fund source associated with that. Also, you are, along with every other local government in California, mandated to convert your fleet and your heavy-duty equipment into electric vehicles, and there's a certain date where that is required. The private sector is no longer subject to that, but it remains in place for cities and counties in California. As of today, when you're talking about the cars that you drive, that's easy, but when you're talking about heavy machinery, it's a whole different market, and so we're working with the Air Resources Board on that to ensure that there's both a marketplace, but also through cap and trade, there should be a fund source so that you're not left holding the bag trying to sort that out on your own. So we're working on that. We are working on housing and homelessness. We just sent a letter within the past couple of days on this topic. Actually, there was a write-up in Cal Matters this morning that references our letter, which essentially is, if the state is going to dedicate dollars to homelessness, one, it needs to occur on an ongoing basis so that communities aren't left to flip a switch on and off related to providing services. And two, there needs to be a much shorter timeline between when it's approved and when the money actually goes out the door. Example, right now, counties and cities are applying for dollars that were approved 15 months ago that you will receive sometime early next year. So it will be 18 to 24 months between when the dollars were approved and when they actually get into communities. That's not acceptable. So we're pushing to ensure that dollars are in your hands within 60 days of enactment of the budget. Let's get all the nonsense out of the way and ensure that communities are empowered to do the work. So we're focused on that. And then elections. So there are conversations, obviously, the whole world has heard about a potential redistricting related thing in a special election that may occur in November of this year here in California. That our lane is not about the politics of that. Our lane is about, if there's a special election, the state shall fund it, period. And so we've been working night and day, particularly over the last week, to ensure that counties are funded for that special election. Thus far, we've gone from counties will absorb all the costs to counties will be reimbursed for cost at some point in the future, good luck, to there will be upfront funding for the election. And those details are not done, so we may need some additional help and reach outs from folks on this board and others, but we've made some considerable progress on that thus far. As we've said, democracy is not free, and you have to actually produce a ballot. That costs money. There are people involved, and if counties are going to carry out the election, perhaps they ought to have the funding to be able to do it. So whatever the election is, so we've been working on that. Separate from our advocacy piece, we operate a CSAC Finance Corporation, which is our business arm, and that business arm works in partnership with counties to develop innovative programs to help either meet your service demands at a lower cost or at the same cost to have improved benefit to the public. And one of the things that we've done recently is create a real estate entity that can serve as your county realtor to the degree that you have insufficient capacity locally. And so this actually is a program that came out of conversations with Del Norte County. So they're the first, Glenn County's a part of it as well, where they did not have sufficient internal capacity to manage all the county assets, whether they're acquiring them or whether they're trying to dispose of them. And so we're partnering with them to help provide that service, which gives them scale that they wouldn't otherwise have. So this is targeted towards more rural counties, but we're learning that there are many counties, suburban and even urban, that need some help as well, given their limited staffing capacity. So that's just one of a dozen different programs that are offered through our finance corporation. We work very closely with our counterparts at the Urban Counties of California and also RCRC, the Rural County Representatives of California. Supervisor Bohn is a past chair of that. And we're often hand in glove in terms of working and advocating together, and that's exactly as it should be. At the end of the day, both associations are here to serve you, and we should be doing that in ways that add additional leverage as we're walking the halls of the Capitol. We love what we get to do. I'm thrilled actually to be back home, and so I showed up last night as someone that grew up in Riedel and Fortuna and Eureka, and got to go by Cutton Elementary and Winship Junior High, where I went when I was not dressed like this, a little more trouble perhaps. So it's a thrill always to come back up here to this beautiful part of the state of California. What I'd like to do now is hand it over to Paul Danchek. He is the Chief Operating Officer of our foundation. So he is in charge of the leadership and policy development program that we have. It's the best in the country, and I'm thrilled that it's been located here so that folks don't have to travel to Sacramento or some other location in order to get access to that. It allows your staff to preserve their time to do service to the public while they're here. And also to invest back in themselves. That only happens with board and CAO support. And so it is this board and your CAO that sets the culture for the staff here, and you've done a really marvelous job of investing internally, and that is exactly how you grow your community. So real hats off to all of you for the great work that you're doing. So let me hand it over to Paul.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Canales. Chair Bushnell, Supervisors, CAO Hayes, I want to thank you for providing space for us to be able to celebrate today. This is my favorite part of the job, to be able to come and recognize the graduates who have gone through the Institute itself, but it couldn't be possible without your vision and leadership to make it all possible. What we know through these types of programs is that they work. The Institute was created in 2008, so almost 17 years ago, as a way to have one core purpose in mind, and that's to advance excellence in county service. And as we get into that space, is a recognition that throughout since that time. And throughout those experiences of having over 1,800 graduates go through the program, from a statewide perspective, what we continue to recognize is the importance to be out in the field. So that is to be out where all of you are, as opposed to coming to Sacramento, as Graham mentioned earlier. We're excited to partner with Humboldt County to be one of our county campuses this year. It's one of 7 that we have throughout the state. And wanted to just give a special shout out, CAO Hayes, to Karen Clower, who's been just a strong force behind not only the design of the program, but also making it work and thinking about it in a regional approach of partnering with Trinity and Del Norte counties and seeing this as a regional hub for the training. So just special thank you when you see her. We know that these programs work. We know through short-term studies and we know through long-term studies. On the short-term studies, the folks behind me have gone through 50 hours of instruction over a 5-month time period. We recognize the importance that this training has on them on a daily basis and know that what we're presenting within the classroom experience, whether it's on communication or leadership or self-awareness, that has a ripple effect to their teams when they go back. The design of the courses are intended to have strong foundations in how we understand public service leadership today and governance within a county space, and also have skills that folks are able to apply when they go right back into the office. We see it happen on a regular basis. We also know that the return is there on a long-term investment as we do alumni surveys each year to say, what's happening within your space? What continues to stick with you? And what we continue to recognize are not only our folks using the skills that they were introduced during the training itself, regardless of how far out they were, that it continues to help them advance within the workplace with their roles and responsibilities. And that's huge. So when we're talking about building cultures within a public administration, public service space, we recognize that these types of trainings are important to help folks become unstuck in the work that we're doing. And with that, CAO Hayes, I would like to recognize the graduates. Would you like to call them out and we'll give them a certificate?
That would be great.
Great. And then supervisors, if you could join us down here to be able to recognize them as well and shake their hands.
Sure. So if you want to unhook that thing in the middle there, and they can come up in here. I also want to just say thank you to CSAC, and I also want to recognize Supervisor Arroyo and myself are she's the alternate, I'm the voting member, and Supervisor Arroyo also chairs a committee for CSAC. What committee is that?
It's the Coastal Counties Working Group.
Yeah. And so I get a ton from, Supervisor Bohn chairs RCR, or is a voting member for RCRC. I just want to say thank you to CSAC. So would you like us to come down there?
Yes, please.
Okay. All of us?
Should you wait? Do you want to wait and then we'll take a group photo together? Does that work? So we'll recognize them with certificates.
Yeah,
and then
that's
invite you
fine.
to
So we'll
down?
come down after everybody's in the circle.
All right. We don't want to be too close quarters. All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so CAO Hayes.
All right. First up, we have Jack Brazil.
And we're going to wait and applause at the end, if that's okay with everyone.
Chelsea Camilli. Dwayne Christian. Daryl Klein. You can set those to the side and we can make sure they get them. Amy Cohn. Aaron Crosby. Brooke Eberhard. Kara Fales. One of our own, Shannon Folk Carlson. Darren Gazzetti. Audrey Hanks. Katie Hill. Kimberly Hinkle, Laurel Johnson, Mario Calson, Sarah McKenna, Catherine Malia, Amber Montgomery, Jason Moore, Peggy Murphy, Denise Murphy, Paige Plummer, Lindsay Reed, Bonnie Robertson, Brianna Sherlock, Taylor Stevenson, we're almost there, James Thompson, Cherie Von Savoy, and last but definitely not least, Dana Wilcox. All right, we got through them all. Got all the names right. Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, CEO Hayes. These 29 folks are joining a network of now 86 within the county of Humboldt and the larger network of 1,800. Congratulations all.
So I think we can just have our board members, if they could just stand up and come close, we could, and then we can get a picture.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would we be able to make 2 rows? Could we just make 2? It's a smaller group, but 2 rows. Excuse me.
If I could just lay down.
I'm gonna grab the cell phone one first and then grab. Okay, cell phone one first. 3, 2, and 1. Actually, I need a little bit tighter if possible too. Perfect, okay. Just a moment. Okay, and 3. I'm gonna take a couple. 3, 2, and 1. 3, 2, and 1. And then one more here. 3, 2, and 1.
If the graduates can join us outside as well for a photo?
Yes, outside as well. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, just like individual? Oh, yeah.
Click that, Graham, can you shut that thing, whatever it's called? Okay, congratulations, everybody, and we are going to go out to public comment on this item, and we'll go to the Zoom.
There is none, Chair.
We'll go to public comment in the room. Is there any public comment on this item? Kent, again. Welcome.
Well, I wanted to thank CSAC for their efforts to go ahead and get our potentially $700,000 election funded. I think Juan Pablo had those comments out there. I'm getting really tired of unfunded mandates, especially when it's for political purposes, in my opinion. I do not support this measure that may be coming forward, and hopefully CSAC, I know they didn't take a position on this. I think the voters voted to have an impartial group do this districting, and for anybody, whether it's Texas or California, anywhere, to try and go over the top of the voters, it takes a 2/3 vote. Strongly support everybody out there. Consider keeping it the way it is, where we have supposedly impartial people or more impartial people making these decisions. It's a sign of terrible politics, and it can have disastrous effects as far as our representation when these political games are played for either side. It doesn't matter who's in charge of this. So I want to thank CSAC for really going to the mat on this one. It's one of the most important issues that we have out there, is our ability to have an election that's not controlled by politics and some big thing going forward in a ridiculous manner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the board for a motion to accept the presentation.
Move to receive and file.
I'll second.
Okay.
Supervisor Bohn,
Yep.
Supervisor Arroyo,
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone,
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson,
Yes.
Chair Bushnell.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. At this time, we will go back up on the agenda and we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items. If you have a public comment on non-agenda items, please line up at the back of the room, but we're going to go to Zoom first. Kaylee, do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do not, Chair.
Okay. Kent, third time's a charm.
I'm still trying. I wish to shout out to the Sheriff's Department. Very disturbing thing happened to me the other day. I had someone over helping me clean my house, sent them into the kitchen to get a garbage can so that we could continue cleaning. And she came back and said, KT's sitting at your table. It's KT or some initials like that. Well, somebody off the street, well off the street in kind of a semi-rural place, had walked into my house and was sitting at my kitchen table. Now, this is very disturbing to a lot of people. It bothers me not as much as other people. The main thing that bothered me was this could be happening to some older person who could not take care of themselves. And so I called 911, instant response from the sheriff. He proceeded to sit out in the yard for a while with his back toward me. Has mental problems, obviously. He has problems. He needed some help. The main thing I wanted to do was see that he got some help and this didn't happen to other people. Sheriff came out promptly. Take the person into custody. I went down to, was asked to identify the person down, I think it's down by Glendale area in front of McKay Ranch. Went down there, the person said, well, he can't see you. I said, I don't have any problem with him seeing me if that's an issue. So I identified and have him arrested. This is something that we need to do as far as participation from the public. Hopefully he'll get the help he needs. He's been known for having these kind of problems before in the area. But I strongly support anybody who has anything like this to go ahead and do whatever you can. It's in the person's best interest to be put into the system somehow and maybe get the help they need. Definitely in the interest of people. And my neighbors all said, well, if that had happened, he might have been shot. So we don't want to be put in the position where we have to defend ourselves from somebody who should not be out on the street. So I wanted to shout out and thank you very much for that. So I think that's the main part of my comment on non-agenda items for today.
Thank you. Good morning. So did you ride the bus or did you bike today?
I actually have a borrowed car today.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm trying to help somebody get county services all connected to benefit that person. And the other thing, I hope to keep this borrowed car so I can go to the county fair because, as you all know, there's no public transportation out to Ferndale and to the county fair. So maybe I'll get to go because I have a car. And the gas is so expensive. I'm glad I don't own a car. But my name's Joanne McGarry. And 3 things I'll just say: war, peace, and compassion. It was wonderful for me to come in late, actually, and watch from behind the wonderful proclamation or recognition of law enforcement people, corrections officers, and all for their commitment to the communities that they are there to serve. Every time I speak at a public podium these days, I feel it's important to remind people that there's awful things happening around the world, and some of it's happening with the use of our tax dollars, whether it's Gaza or elsewhere. But right now, my focus is Gaza. We really would benefit, I think, our community by our supervisors once again addressing this issue of our tax dollars being used to destroy a people and a place across the world is not what the majority of our citizens want in Humboldt County or elsewhere. So if you could come up with a wonderful letter potentially to our senators, U.S. senators and our congresspeople that says no more money. Representative Ilan Omar has said, has produced a petition that could be signed by individuals and maybe groups and entities. So a war and peace. Peace locally. Again, I had a similar incident with someone in my property being there uninvited and had to call law enforcement. And so this is an ongoing issue. And also compassion. There's a charter for compassion that was created. It's an international charter, but people can sign on to it. And a lot of the word compassion has been used a lot from this dais and in meetings in the past. And I really do think that looking at the Charter for Compassion and having Humboldt County be a member of that Charter for Compassion, committed to compassion for all peoples everywhere, including our own county. It's a beautiful document, and you can look it up under Charter for Compassion on the internet. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. Peace in the world, and let's Gaza live.
Thank you, Joanne. Make sure you look at the schedule for the fair because it isn't a fair day, it's a weigh-in day before you drive out there. Okay. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on non-agenda items, and we're going to go to planning and building for our first and only public hearing today. And I'm going to let Director Ford is going to introduce the item and kind of tell us how the flow is going to go. Director Ford?
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. Good morning. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. John Ford, Rodney Yandell, and Rhiann Mahan to present the lighting ordinance for both the inland and the coastal zone. What we'd like to do this morning is to make a presentation which includes two parts. One, we're going to go through some of the general concepts in a PowerPoint, and then we're going to open up the ordinance itself and walk through that very briefly. And then we would be happy to receive any questions that you might have.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing, and then we're going to receive a presentation and staff report, correct?
Correct.
And we're going to hold our questions until the end from the board if we could, please. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. We should have a PowerPoint. There we go.
Good morning, Chair and Board of Supervisors. My name is Rhiann Meekin. I am Associate Planner with the Planning and Building Department to present the outdoor lighting ordinance. There is an inland and a coastal version of this ordinance. With this ordinance, we will be implementing Scenic Resources Standard for Light and Glare and Implementation Measure Lighting Design Guidelines, which are more in depth in the staff report. This ordinance was taken to the Planning Commission for a workshop on March 20th and a hearing on May 15th and approved by the Planning Commission 6-0. The intent of this ordinance is to maintain safety, protect and preserve our skies by minimizing light trespass, light pollution, establishing reasonable design standards, and addressing community complaints. We are not trying to prohibit lighting. We are simply trying to minimize unnecessary lighting of areas that transpires onto neighboring properties. So light pollution means any artificial light emitted by into the atmosphere either directly or indirectly, which may have a disruptive effect on natural cycles such as circadian rhythm of both humans and other animals, and also could it affect just natural cycles in plants, and inhibits the observation of stars and planets. So general regulations of both the inland and coastal ordinance are that lighting shall be directed downward and shielded. For shielding, it must be fully shielded, or we do have the option of having a translucent material to cover the light bulb but the light must have a warm color temperature of 2,700 kelvins. So on that image, it shows examples of translucent material light fixtures and how the light bulb still isn't seen, but it still just does provide more of an aesthetic option for the public. And this goes into shielding and why we are supporting fully shielded. The less shielding, the more light pollution emits into the atmosphere and sky. Could also provide an issue for traveling public. So we are aiming for fully shielded, which would be under the better, and then best would be fully shielded with a timer or motion sensor. And that was from Dark Sky International. Warm lighting, we are suggesting a 2,700 Kelvin warm temperature. This is correlated color temperature. The warmer lights are shown to have less of an effect on light pollution. It disrupts the natural cycles of humans, organisms, less than the bluer light. So that is why we decided to go with the warmer temperatures, allowing the public to still have options of non-fully shielded, but creating less of a glare or glow into the atmosphere. In this ordinance, we address kelvins and have the option of the 2,700 max Kelvin temperature and lumens, which measures brightness and intensity. So these are two different measurements of light. Temperature is how it appears, while lumens is going to be that brightness and intensity of the light and the amount of visible light source emitted. On lighting or light bulb packages and possibly some lighting fixture packages, there will be this lighting facts information that shows the brightness, the lumens, and also the kelvins. So it should be available to the public when purchasing new light bulbs or light fixtures. They should be aware of what they're purchasing. In the draft that was presented to the Planning Commission, we suggested residential uses have a 1,000 lumen maximum and commercial industrial uses have a 3,000 lumen maximum. Through research, we saw that there are light bulbs that go up to 1,100. There wasn't as many that were 1,000. Same with commercial, there was some 3,000, some that were 3,200 lumen maximum. So we are presenting to the board that one change from Planning Commission. Going to local hardware stores, it seemed like common light bulb options for residential were 800 or 1,100. So that is why we're suggesting to change from 1,000 maximum lumen to 1,100 maximum lumen for residential. And then with research of higher lumen light bulbs and fixtures, there was options of 3,200 lumen, and then from there it jumps to 3,500 and 3,600. So that's why we're suggesting going up to 3,200 lumen maximum to just give the public more options and not, limit local supply of light fixtures. The main public comments we received were that the following should not be exempt. The translucent fixtures, which were shown on a previous page, string lights, motion detectors. We will go into this more when I open up the ordinance to do a walkthrough. We received many comments regarding that this ordinance shouldn't address street lighting. Per the General Plan Implementation Action Plan, Public Works Land Use was listed as the responsible department for addressing the implementation measures associated with street lighting. We were able to discuss with Public Works. They weren't aware that they were assigned to this. So per the Board of Supervisors, they can direct planning staff to make street lighting ordinance a priority. And that is part of the staff report, is the Planning Commission would like to be involved with the street lighting ordinance as well. And there is a website that addresses street lighting. That is a county webpage, and we could open that if needed later on. But I think we can move on to walking through the ordinance now. I will be going through the inland version of the ordinance. The key difference between the inland and the coastal is
I'm going to interrupt really quick and just ask that you pull the microphone closer, just so everybody can hear you really well.
Yes, thank you. So the key difference between the coastal and the inland is coastal will reference environmentally sensitive habitat areas, also known as ESHA, while inland will be biological resources. And that's only in one section, and I'll point to that when we're going through the ordinance. But everything else between the ordinance, or versions of the ordinance, is the same. So the purpose of the ordinance is to cut light trespass, light pollution, while still allowing the public to have exterior lighting. Just want to make that clear. We are not trying to prohibit outdoor lighting. The general regulations are that lighting shall be shielded and directed downwards, while lighting fixtures do have the option to either be fully shielded or go to that 2,700 Kelvin color temperature light bulb and have a translucent material cover the light bulb itself. But the fixture shall still be directed downward and not towards neighboring properties, public right-of-way, biological resources, or the sky. And then in the coastal version, it would say ESHA instead of biological resources, and that's the only difference between the two versions. Moving on to prohibited lighting, we discussed this in depth with the Planning Commission and decided upon prohibiting the following items. The low pressure sodium fixtures, those aren't that common anymore, and we're very consistent with other adopted ordinances throughout the state. It just seems like the state is moving away from using those in general, and they just aren't that environmentally friendly. A conditional use permit may allow for some of the prohibited lighting systems. They would just have to apply for that permit, and it would be for a special event. Moving on to exempt lighting. The exempt lighting still cannot create light trespass onto neighboring properties. And the string lighting must have a correlated color temperature of 2,700 kelvins or less as an exemption, so it still can't have emit that blue, brighter light. It would have to be that more yellow, warm colors in order to be exempted from the ordinance. We did discuss athletic field lighting within a school campus, public or private park in depth with the Planning Commission, and there was some back and forth on this, and we did receive a couple comments regarding athletic field lighting. Moving on to lighting for residential use. Lighting for residential use would have to meet all the general regulations. In addition, there is the maximum illumination requirement of not exceeding 1,000 lumens. We are proposing to move that to be 1,100 lumens just to allow for more light bulb flexibility. Lighting for agricultural, commercial, and industrial use, we are proposing moving from 3,000 to 3,200 lumens. And once again, that lighting would still have to meet the general regulations. There will be a conformance review as part of a building permit application for lighting. Which must show the shielding, light dispersion, which could be in foot candles or correlated color temperature. Pre-existing lighting. Any lighting fixture that was installed prior to the adoption of these regulations and was consistent with the zoning regulations at the time may remain in its installed form, subject to if there is a complaint regarding the lighting fixture and it's deemed a nuisance, then it would be reviewed by code enforcement. And then it just goes on to definitions, and that would conclude just the initial walkthrough of the ordinance.
Okay. Is that it? That's it? Okay, so comments from the board or clarification questions, and then we're going to go out to public comment. Supervisor Arroyo.
Could you say a little bit more about the sports field lighting concerns that were raised? I know we had a lot of public comments around the things that you mentioned, but could you give some thoughts about that?
Yes, so we did discuss that at the Planning Commission workshop. We went back and forth with the Planning Commission on whether it should be exempted, possibly have a permit, things of that nature. When it comes to athletic fields currently, a lot of them are, under the state's regulations, so we wouldn't have jurisdiction anyways. And from there, we've also suggested that if the board does direct us to do a street lighting ordinance, we could pull athletic field lighting from that and do that as part of the street lighting ordinance, since it would be more consistent with, or more in-depth lighting compared to just this general regulations of outdoor lighting.
Okay, that's helpful. And a lot of the sports fields I can think of are, either state or local municipalities. So we wouldn't be directing them anyway. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
Supervisor Wilson.
As a follow-up, I saw that parking lots are in here, and we're in terms of under the jurisdiction, so I guess I'm trying to see whether or not there's a delineation between those two spaces, especially if there are parking lots that are under the jurisdiction of public ownership.
If it would be exempted, we wouldn't be able to regulate it, obviously, but it would still provide a guideline for anything that, say, the county would do in terms of parking lots, because it is establishing those standards.
Okay. I'm just going to hold my questions, I guess, until after public comment. That's all right.
Anybody else before we go to public comment? Just clarifying questions? Okay, so we're going to go out to public comment, and we're going to start with Sue.
There is none, Chair.
And we'll go to public comment in the room on this agenda item. Is there any public comment in the room? Hi, good morning.
Hi. Okay, we, is my sister and I, we are here today to bring to your attention an outdoor lighting situation on Myrtle Avenue at Park Street created by Wright Automotive. At twilight and after dark, if you are driving east on Myrtle Avenue and are turning left onto Park Street, there is an extremely bright security light that blinds the driver to any foot traffic crossing Park Street or bicyclists traveling westbound on Myrtle Avenue. We are very much concerned that someone will be hit by a vehicle where drivers cannot see them because of the serious glare caused by this extremely bright security light. Per the Sheriff's Department, my sister contacted the owner of Wright Automotive, who cited the light was there for theft prevention, which is a major concern for his business. As the days continue to get shorter, this extremely bright security light becomes more of an issue for families attending events at Lafayette School and/or residents or visitors going to the Coast Guard housing. When you are turning right onto Park Street, there is no problem because of where the light is mounted. Thank you for listening to this major concern of ours. We have copies for each of you. Respectfully, Phyllis Coy and Elaine Barched.
Thank you. You can give copies to CAO Hayes down here then.
Somewhere over here. Okay, thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Mark Wilson from McKinleyville, and I'm the Vice President of the Astronomers of Humboldt. We're a nonprofit educational organization, and I might mention most recently on August the 2nd, we were down at Humboldt Redwoods State Park, and we introduced 310 people to the wonders of the night sky. Part of our mission, of course, is to introduce people to the wonders of the night sky, but just not to look at them. But as I said, we're an educational organization, and we teach people about astronomy and cosmology and promote science in general. A week ago, we were at the Cal Poly Natural History Museum at their summer camp for kids, and we had a program for about, I think there were 20, 21 kids there. So we serve the Humboldt community in a variety of ways, and obviously we have an interest in the night sky. I want to commend the Planning Department and the Planning Commission for developing this ordinance and bringing it forward. It's going to put Humboldt County in the forefront of protecting the night skies, not only in the state, but nationally and internationally. I'm the liaison of our club with the International Dark Sky Association, so I'm familiar with the presentation that the department gave to you. A couple of things, though. The night sky ordinance has two things: protect the night sky for shielding, and then the color of the lights. And the previous presenter mentioned about the bright lights. These extremely bright lights that are daylight type lights actually reduce the safety of these people who are trying to protect their businesses, which they should, of course. But the lights get so bright, if the sheriff shows up, they're blinded. And I can attest to that because of my neighbor's light shining right in my eyes when I walk out the door. I can't see anything. So that's very important. The other thing that the county did and changed in the original ordinance was originally the county was exempt from this ordinance. So now they have made the county to come in compliance with the ordinance. But what I would suggest is that maybe the Board of Supervisors develop a policy whereby the old lighting at the county facilities come into compliance with this new ordinance. And say maybe over a 5-year period. Obviously all this costs money. But I would encourage you to develop or consider such a policy to make the county come in compliance over a period of time. It doesn't have to be 5 years. So this is a very important ordinance, and I would suggest that you adopt it.
Thank you. Hello again.
Greetings, my name's Joanne McGarry. I grew up in Los Angeles, and the only stars I knew were Hollywood ones. So I grew up not really knowing about the night sky, and it wasn't really until I became a National Park Ranger at the Golden Gate National Recreation Area and met one of the Park Service people who was in charge of the night sky initiatives for the national parks. And I was out at Pinnacles National Monument when I met him. And then subsequently learning so much of the importance of the natural need for having a night sky visible for living things. There's definitely something very, very, well, I don't want to say therapeutic, but there's something necessary in living creatures, including humans, to have access to a natural night sky. And anything we can do in our civilization to reduce artificial light when it's not natural to be there is really, really important in my opinion for our welfare and the welfare of the living plants and animals around. So light, this ordinance, probably allows a little too much light, which sort of reminds me of that power outage in 2019 when all the power was out in October of 2019, and for 3 days we had to live without night lights. And I remember standing on my front doorstep looking at the Milky Way, and that's in Arcata. But, I just think how beautiful the night sky is if you have an opportunity to see it with the naked eye or observe it, with a telescope. But I really do think the more we can do as a Humboldt community to get back to a more natural sensation in our world is going to be healthy for us and for all living things. So please do what you can to support light, reducing light pollution, and the next thing will be noise pollution. So go and look at the stars tonight if you can in a place that's not well lit, and just feel the sensation of what that is. And so I just want to say anything we can do, let's do it for the benefit of nature and ourselves.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. I work for Humboldt Waterkeeper as a GIS and policy analyst. We submitted a comment letter. I'm sure it's in your board packet. We're really excited to see the county tackling light pollution. It's going to be a really great way to ensure that we, as well as our animal neighbors, are living according to our circadian rhythms again. We are really grateful to staff for adding our requested illumination maximums and also for researching what's commercially available, where we support the new updated illumination maximums of 1,100 lumens and 3,200 lumens for residential and commercial properties, respectively. We want to make sure that this is accessible to everybody. The translucent shielding material kind of caveat, I think, kind of defeats the purpose of shielding in the first place by allowing some light to escape upwards or sideways, which is actually in direct conflict with the definition of fully shielded in this ordinance. So we're hoping that that allowance for translucent material can be removed. The example that was shown earlier showed a kind of like opaque translucent material, which if this caveat remains, that would be the preference, but that isn't clarified in the language of the ordinance whether the material that's translucent should be more opaque or less. So I just think that should be removed in general. The exemptions that are outlined in section 105.1.4 provide nearly wholesale exemptions for a wide variety of light sources that cause not only light trespass but light pollution. And I think that the following exemptions could go further to prevent light pollution. 105.1.4.2 for flags, statues, and other objects. This exemption could be refined to ensure that lighting for flags, statues, and other objects does not obscure the night sky by adding language requiring the lights to be turned off after a certain time. And I think that the best limit on that would be about an hour after sunset. 105.1.4.4 athletic field lighting. Rather than exempting athletic field lighting wholesale, we recommend outlining specific limits by adding an athletic field section. I think staff recommended earlier putting it in the street lighting ordinance that has been discussed, but obviously hasn't been written yet. I think that would be a great way to do it. It needs more detail rather than just an exemption entirely. 105.1.4.3 string lights. Color temperature is not the same as light intensity, unfortunately. String lights that are warm can still cause light pollution, so I think that those should be removed from the exemptions section. And thank you for this opportunity to shape the county's light ordinance. We are super excited to see the county tackle light pollution. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Jen Calt with Humboldt Waterkeeper. I was going to say a lot of the same things that other people have already said, so I won't do that and waste your time. But I really want to just emphasize support for staff bringing this forward and for making the practical recommendations based on what's easily available in stores. That's super helpful for the average person. Anybody who's, I don't know, of a certain age goes to the store oftentimes and thinks, I only know what. And so you have to figure out what you're trying to buy. And also the warm color temperature is really critical for migrating birds in particular, which our region is so famous for. It's, you know, it's not only a safety issue for drivers being blinded, it's a cost issue for people saving electricity. Like in McKinleyville, where I live, oftentimes the streetlight electricity is paid for by the residents whose neighborhood is being lit up by those lights. So saving electricity is another benefit of reducing light pollution, and just being able to see the stars and being able to sleep well. How many people have trouble sleeping, and neighbors' lights, especially those really bright string lights that people have gotten so into in recent years, are shining into your bedroom? You know, people shouldn't have to go get blackout curtains just to be able to sleep well. Also want to support the idea of a streetlight ordinance if that's the way it really has to be done. It seems kind of crazy that the two departments have to do these things separately, but I would urge the Planning Commission to start work on that and the staff to start working on that as soon as possible. It seems like it would be pretty straightforward to do. And to incorporate the athletic field lighting as well. So thank you so much, and I look forward to celebrating adoption of this after many, many years of talking about it back in the general plan update days. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lighting has changed greatly during my time period. It was really common to have 250-watt light bulbs on all night in front of your garage or something. That doesn't seem to be ongoing. Regarding the street lighting and things, I see no reason to go in anything other than state rules on that particular one. This is a safety issue. It's that the rules they have there are for a reason, and I cannot see any reason. If you make it more restrictive, you're opening yourself up to potential litigation should there be an accident because of insufficient lighting. Light is very important to some people. I strongly support the use of whatever lighting you have to be based upon, it's needed only when there's motion out there. I mean, if you have a sidewalk you're going up and down, or you're worried about critters in your yard or something like that, the motion detectors are a very effective way to minimize the amount of lighting you're required to have. Regarding some of these other topics, I don't have a problem with what was written here. I don't see any reason to change or adapt other than what's happened here. Adapting them to actually functionally fit the light bulb sizes that we have out there is, of course, critical. Appreciate that last change there to make it functional where people can go and buy things. If you can't buy these certain things and you have regulations, or if there's a lot of things out there that you can't buy, in other words, will this preclude the standard string lighting that you get at Harbor Freight or any other discount place? Don't know. You're going to have a lot of regulation problems with this. I guess it's all based upon, I guess, complaint driven. I would assume this would be complaint driven. And a lot of us neighbors get along fine, and we don't mind if somebody feels they have a little more light than other things. The biggest thing I see, we no longer have what I refer to caterpillars in the hills, where they had all this lighting and people were not following the regulations. Flying out of here used to just go over and it was extremely irritating to see all the light that was put out there for that particular business is not there anymore. So I'm glad that is no longer a factor. Thank you for regulating this. Thank you for all the time staff did. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to staff for comments.
I don't know that we have a lot of things that we'd respond to other than just to remind the board that where there is a translucent requirement, it is associated with lighting of a certain temperature. That has to be a warm light, not more than 2,700 kelvins. So it's a little bit of an alternative. I know there's back and forth on whether or not that's adequate, but as Ms. Megan said, we were trying to just allow some of the residences to have something that was a trade-off.
Okay, then I will, I'm going to close the public hearing and we will deliberate, and I'll start with the board. Who wants to go first? Supervisor Wilson.
First, I want to acknowledge the time that it's taken to get to this place. It was definitely an issue a decade ago, and even more. It was even, light pollution and the issues around that did show up in the original general plan, and were updated, which is I think in 1984, and then updated again in 2017, and so we're really finally getting into an ordinance here, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the staff and the time that the public's put into this. I want to speak to some experiences that I've had in communities that have good or strong lighting ordinances that I've seen all over the United States and even internationally. And even just last weekend, I was in a town in Central California where they had shielded streetlights, which is a very common thing in the state and in other places. And it was very interesting to be in a community where it was fairly urbanized, where you could see the night sky fairly clearly. And people were really proud of it. They were proud of the fact that it not just protected them as in their domiciles, but visitors that came, because there was a state park adjacent to the area. There was other natural resources, and so they were concerned and wanted to protect those resources for their business sake, for the values of not just their home but also their community. I've seen it, and I just want to put it out there kind of on a political spectrum. I've seen this in very, I would say, I know we overuse these terms red and blue, but I've seen it in very, very red spaces and towns, both in Central California and other places, because it tends to be connected very clearly to rural values around what are we trying to protect, why do we want to live in a place that has these open spaces, and so why, there's that part. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is that folks understood fairly clearly that this was not generally a huge expense, that really you're trying to limit wastefulness in many ways. In a lot of ways, this is a lot like our ordinances that we've seen in the past around wasting water, where we used to see people just, having sprinklers that would go out into the street and those sorts of things. This is just not dissimilar. This is light. If you can see light in a place that it's not supposed to be, that's just wasted energy. There's not really a purpose for it other than just that folks just maybe didn't know that they had options and didn't put maybe a little bit of extra time into just making the changes that need to happen. Around security, I think folks, there's a lot of studies around this, and I will say there was a comment letter. If people want to really see a huge list of resources and information, there was a comment letter that came in. It's under in our staff report, or in your staff report, and that just had, I don't know, pages and pages of studies around light pollution, its impacts on humans, its impacts on security, and its impacts on the ecosystems. It was very, very complete. But one thing we know about bright lights is that human eyes, and as well as eyes in general, adjust to light, not to darkness. And so the brighter the light is, the harder it is to actually see anything that's not in the light directly. So it actually makes it easier for folks to hide, or for things to hide in the shadows, because you create stronger shadows. And when you're looking, and this is not just for eyeballs, but it's also for cameras as well. And so that's why you often see security camera footage where it's just very bleached out or very contrasty, and you can't really see any details, is oftentimes because the lights are so bright that the cameras themselves have a hard time delineating. It's too much contrast. It's and so it's very hard. But likewise for eyes, humans as well. So where we often might feel that it's safer to have these very brighter lights, it often can create very unsafe conditions, as well as blinding folks when they're moving around in cars. We've heard about that this evening or today as well. So I think we should be cognizant of that, and I think this gets into that. So from that perspective, I just wanted to frame why I think this is important, and why we're getting there. So I'm just going to get into a few questions that I have, and kind of, if I can, and not to belabor too much, but around, there was some comments around sort of the flags and statues and the upward illumination, and so there was some thought around the timing of that, and I do know that there is some tradition around flags in particular, or at least the American flag, that if you have it up at night, it's supposed to be illuminated, and be to represent that it's flying in the daylight and that sort of thing. Is there a need to completely eliminate, or can we separate flags from, say, just like statues and other things? Is that a possibility in terms of an ordinance like this?
We can certainly separate flags from statues, and thank you for recognizing the etiquette associated with the American flag. That's really why that's there, and so we can certainly separate those out. Okay,
I think that might be something of consideration, and it's specific to the American flag. I think. I mean, I don't know if other flags have that sort of etiquette or understanding, but I don't know. This is the only one I actually have some understanding about because of some architectural work from the past. And then with the string lights, so this still doesn't have any sort of timer or timing. Like, I mean, if you have a neighbor that's got these things on all night long and they're right up next to your property, is this really an expectation that that's okay?
There's two things I want to talk about there. One is that lights aren't supposed to be on when they're not needed.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's got string lights on all night long in their backyard and it's lighting up the neighbor's yard, A, that is a light trespass.
Okay.
B, it's illuminating something that doesn't need to be illuminated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is in itself a violation. The other thing that the Planning Commission was extremely concerned about with the string lights is that there's a lot of outdoor seating areas and things where people have string lights.
Yeah.
And they really didn't want to discourage that because that's a nice...
I love string lights. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm a big fan. So,
okay.
Not trying to, but I also don't want to disturb my neighbors late into the night necessarily. And usually if my string lights are on, there's probably noise associated with that. But, I'm just wondering about people just leave them on all night.
Well, if they leave them on all night and that's consistently done, I would submit to you that that's a violation of this ordinance.
Okay.
Okay. If they're out there, if they are having barbecues and they're sitting out there with their family, being quiet, but the lights are on, that's appropriate. And it is, again, the warmer light that's required, not the really bright blue light, but the light that's more at the yellow end of the spectrum, so it's not going to be creating that kind of glow.
Yeah.
That's the exemption that exists there.
I see. Because part of this is also non-human impacts, and especially in an area that receives fog and those sorts of things, that you can really light up a sky with string lights just because of reflection and refraction. And so I'm just kind of wondering, how would that be addressed?
I don't think I'm understanding the question.
Well, I guess I'm saying is like the impact if it's not neighbors, then it's on just the night sky in general. So,
well, it's on the night sky.
Yeah.
But again, trying to reduce the glow and the glare by the temperature of the lighting. Okay. Not having the lighting left on all night long.
Right.
Because it should only be illuminated when the area is being used.
Yeah.
There's also, it does say no light trespass on the neighboring properties. One of the things that we've been debating is whether or not that should say light trespass on the neighboring properties, the night sky, and in the inland area, biologically sensitive areas,
Okay.
and in the coastal zone, ESHA.
That's the part I'm concerned about. Past 10 p.m. You see what I'm saying? So, okay. I would be interested in seeing something like that. I appreciate the question around whether the athletic field lighting should be, brought back to us in the form of a street light ordinance. Although, the street light ordinance, would it be a separate ordinance or would it be an amendment to this ordinance?
We would amend this ordinance, I think.
Okay.
With both the street lights and I appreciate the speaker's comment that just with more detail.
Yeah.
And really think through. I mean, the art to ordinance writing is to think through, okay, what does it say? What does it want to accomplish? But
Yeah.
how easily applied is it?
And
And so that just takes some thought.
So, my interpretation is that athletic field lighting does not include, say, skate parks and tennis courts and other things like that. That would be my interpretation, but I don't see it well defined in here.
Somebody could make that argument, but the intent really was baseball fields, football fields.
Okay. Soccer fields?
Soccer fields, softball fields.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. All right. But not bocce ball courts.
Bocce ball courts could be illuminated, but they don't have to be illuminated to the same level that like a baseball field is. If you've played softball at night, you know how important that lighting is.
Yeah. Well, I get that part. What I'm getting at is it exempt? You see what I'm saying? Does it fit into this exemption?
Well, and that becomes part of the question for the board is
Okay.
if you want us to go and really develop something for athletic fields and for different kinds of sporting fields and
Right.
and things like that, we can absolutely do that, be happy to do that.
And again, I mean, light that illuminates outside of the sports field is waste,
Yeah.
essentially. I mean, just that's what it is. There's no. They can be designed in a way that that they can be shielded, certainly better than what we've seen in the past, and I guess there's just an arc towards improvement in that regard. What I didn't really get into a little bit is part of the why we're probably addressing this ordinance now and why it feels more urgent than before is because in the last 5 years or even 10 years, but really in the even last 5, and it's accelerating, is the conversion to LED lighting. And so we're just producing so much more brightness and so much more power in those lights than at lower cost, and just not just for the fixtures, but also for the electricity. And what's coming and flooding into the market is just, there's just no attention necessarily to that change. It's such a huge change to our landscape our nighttime landscape. And you can see the difference so dramatically between, say, I mean, I'll just say, like, between, say, like, one of the hotels along over here on 4th or 5th Street versus a place where they took some time and really looked at it. For instance, sort of the car lot between Arcata and Eureka there at Harper's, you know, if you look out there, you don't see their lights, except for the big wall that says Toyota on it, but you don't see their street lights. You can see that it's illuminating, but they do it's a really good job of actually, you know, of protecting the resources that are around them. I want to commend them for that. I think you can, and you can see the difference between a gas station that insets those lights where you don't see that horizontal, or where they pop out down below and just completely floods the neighborhood. And so it's really just, these are just choices ultimately that can be made. And sometimes it's less expensive to choose something that's better. So the last one on this list that in terms of the exemptions was the motion detector situation. And I see that it's like, okay, it can go off in 5 minutes and it can't be triggered from outside the property.
Right.
But in an more urban landscape or suburban landscape, I mean, this could be really terrible. Like luckily I'm at a neighbor across near me, and they had a light that was just extremely bright, and just like it would go on every time a car would go by or someone would walk by, and just like blare into, you know, into our space. And we worked it out, right? I get it. But what I'm saying is like it's not really accounted for in here, you know. And so like a neighbor could really disturb another neighbor just like by having cats and dogs walk by all night, and just the light blurts on for 5 minutes, then turns off, and it could be as bright as it need. You know, there doesn't seem to be any sort of control on sort of that.
So I would just recall your attention to the sentence up above.
Yeah.
That it can't have light spillover. It can't
Okay.
have light trespass.
Okay.
So, you know, even if a dog or a cat sets
Okay.
it off,
right,
you know, it's still got to be aimed down so that
Okay.
it doesn't extend off the property.
I appreciate that. We talked about parking lots for a second. I think it might be good to bring parking lots into the street lighting ordinance, so just from my or update, just because they're kind of two parts of the same thing. I feel like. I think that's all I have for now in terms of my comments. Part of this is, I guess I go to the translucent material cover issue. I just find that we're going to make it harder to enforce. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like with the translucent cover, like we're just, if we allow for that, then it's just going to be something that's going to, then you have to measure something in terms of enforcement and the complaints around that. It's like, if you don't have it, then you don't have to worry about it. But then if it's, you see what I'm getting? Because there's some very bright lights that are created around these, that still have translucent covers on them. And we see them like all over the place right now. So help me with that.
Agreed, but if like the staff were to walk up,
yeah,
and it's a translucent cover,
yeah,
and it has a very bright blue light coming out of it,
right,
it wouldn't qualify,
right,
because it's required to be not more than 2,700 kelvins, which means it's at the other end of the color spectrum, so it should be more of a yellowish color. And the picture that Miss Megan showed, should have, was a little bit more yellow, so that it's a much more muted light with the translucent cover. If that's, I like the idea. I agree with you. I like the idea of simplicity, but I see that as being pretty simple. If it's a bright blue light, doesn't qualify.
Right.
If it's more on the yellow end of the spectrum, there's a good chance that it's probably okay.
But a bright yellow light, right? I mean, so I'm getting to the bright part.
Well, at that point, we would ask to see, what did they actually put in there in terms of the bulb.
Okay, so what would be that limitation in that currently?
It would be 2,700 kelvins.
Okay. Would it be, I think I'm just kind of trying to predict a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
I think specifically to the coastal section of this and the resources that we're talking about, I feel like this is where we might want to be a little more vigilant. Just saying, we have so many migratory species in that space that are subject to there are, in Florida, many cities and jurisdictions, very strict lighting because they have migratory species like turtles and other things, and so they're really very concerned on their coasts about that. And I feel like this would be a place where I think that would be something we might want to consider, removing that exemption in the coastal zone part of our ordinance. Those are my comments. Appreciate the discussion.
Supervisor Bohn.
I'm intrigued by the athletic field lighting. Maybe we could have it less for bocce ball, maybe a little less for slow pitch softball, maybe brighter for fast pitch softball. Somewhere in there, we need to throw a safety concern in there if we're going to have athletic fields. There's only a handful, 2 privately held athletic fields in the county, I believe, to any extreme. And I know one has extensively looked at lights and said, oh my God, what a pain in the butt. So they're still not lit. The best thing to do with athletic fields, and most municipalities with these and everything else, they put a time limit. I mean, you buy the house next to the airport and then you don't want it to do any airport stuff. Same thing with an athletic field. Then I want to change everything. You put a time limit, kind of like Redwood Acres. Redwood Acres has a time limit on the racetrack. They have a time limit, and I believe it's 10 o'clock. It used to be 11, and then it went to 10. And if it goes after 10, there's complaints, there could be fines, there could be, and I don't know exactly where that is. But that's for people that buy, if everybody bought their house pre-Redwood Acres, 1900, whatever, has earned every right to complain, but afterwards, no. So I think time limits for that, because the thing is, it is a safety concern with baseball, with soccer, with almost everything. Parking lot lights, I would love to see a time limit on parking lot lights. Have them be a little bit brighter till 9:30, till the people that are shopping and the staff get to their cars and leave. And then I fully believe that Bayshore, all these parking lots could drop down their lighting quite a bit. I think that would be purely acceptable. I fly a flag 24/7. My light went out, so I ordered a new light. And by the time I ordered a new light, my neighbor had put a light up on his fence illuminating my flag. Solar, mind you, solar spotlight, so yay green. I'm hearing all these rules and everything else. We're going to do this and check light. Who's doing all this? How much staff, Tom didn't know he did street lights, and now he does, and he wants part of it. And I'm just trying to figure out who's going to do this. Because I would love to see, if we have those people on hand now, I would love to have some of them working on some code enforcement stuff that's been going on too long. But are we going to bring people on to do the light bulb? I mean, we did this during the when grow lights were, more popular. And I remember having a conversation at 9:30 at night with Director Ford on a Sunday, going, I'm at this grow and they have no lights on. But they'd had 4 complaints that night, and it was completely dark, and had been dark. So we're going to have to monitor that somehow, and that's going to take staffing. So maybe we put on a lighting tax? Yeah, that'll go over anyway. I'm just saying, as we move forward, and John and you and I talked yesterday, there has not been enough involvement, and I told you I was going to say this, from the contractors and the engineers that are building all this stuff. It would be, we had to get a call from Kevin to tell us, I don't sell those light bulbs. And so I called a few lighting contractors this weekend and asked them, it's just, they didn't know a thing about it. Now, we had town halls, I understand. Not too many people, you know. But I think the people that are having to do the lighting and stuff should have a say-so. I mean, I know we get the ultimate say-so, but what are we doing up here talking about it when we're the people that actually put the you know, rubber on the road have no idea, will that work? Can we do that? Can you do this? They can do everything. I mean, I've got one of those low lights in front of my shop just for that reason. My neighbors love it because they like the extra light. The other thing is we do have a pretty, the Coy sisters fully agree. That light got me the other night about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going, yep, that's an issue. But the whole idea is to be convenient to your neighbor, light skies, migratory, and there's so many factors that, you know, come into play here. But at the end of the day, we can write everything we want on paper, but there has to be an enforcement issue. The reason this took on so much speed, and I'll say, I think what's taken on so speed, we had a retired Caltrans engineer about 16 months ago bring in pictures of his house with 4x8 sheets of plywood over his windows because his neighbor had a light. Literally had a light that shined so bright you could read the newspaper at night in his bedroom. So he had to cover up those windows. That was the start of this, and then he put in numerous hours tracing this, going, looking, helping John. He was very helpful on this, I think. So I appreciate that, but that did light a fire because we did have a problem, and that problem, there were other problems. So on some of these, instead of the looms, you know, maybe we should be looking at all recreational lights go off at 10 o'clock at night. And maybe during the summer when adult softball is going on, maybe we make an exception or give the planning building a time to make a concession. But in all honesty, I've been involved with youth sports for over 50 years. There is no reason in the world that a child should be out after 10 o'clock at night playing any athletic sport. I don't care if dad thinks he's going to go pro and make him say, you know, and everything else. It should not happen. They need another life besides that. I think it's great they do it and all the other time, but there's a lot of light to play in. So I think we should look at timing. Timing is a lot easier to enforce. We don't have to climb a ladder to check out the looms and the temperatures and everything else. But that's where it's done. And I don't know if Mike's all his research, that's what it's done in a lot of fields. So I go to a lot of fields. I said, what's your deal? He says, we're done at 10. We're done at 10:30. We're lights out. And they'll tell you before the game, that'll be the end of the game right there. So I would like to see that on athletic fields at least, because the one thing is, I do not want to dim it down for a kid having to catch a line drive off a bat. I would much rather have him put sunglasses on during the daytime, but not have to figure out to put a light on top of his head so he can see a fly ball coming at him. So I think there are some instances where we could use a little bit more common sense, and let's just throw everything at it and see what sticks, because a lot of this stuff we're not going to be able to enforce. And it sounds really great, but we do have to apply it.
Thank you. So this ordinance is in unincorporated Humboldt, correct?
Correct.
And so what, a lot of the things that my co-supervisors are talking about are in incorporated areas. What does the lighting ordinance look like comparatively to Eureka's, Fortuna's, so forth and so on? Bayshore Mall is in incorporated Eureka. That's not going to help us. This ordinance won't.
Both Eureka and Arcata have very light, well, I guess, pun intended, I guess, very relaxed ordinances, very minimal. It does not explicitly, off the top of my head, it does not explicitly address athletic fields, Bayshore Mall, things of that nature. So we did go a step beyond what's currently adopted by Arcata and Eureka. I'm not recalling if Fortuna had one passed. I don't believe Ferndale did. It has been a while since I did research all of those, but we did look greatly into Eureka and Arcata, and it was a very minimal ordinance. I believe Eureka might be starting to look into revising theirs. I called them for something, but this definitely goes a step beyond. But there was not anything targeted towards the athletic fields.
Fortuna does not have one, and they're working on a noise ordinance. And my reason for asking is a lot of the comments we heard today are in incorporated areas, and so this is not going to help those areas. And I do understand the lighting issues in unincorporated, and I do like the time frame, the 10 o'clock or whatever in the sports areas. But I also don't want to make things so much harder for people in unincorporated areas when you have the municipalities that are glowing like a light bulb, per se. And also the enforcement part is going to be difficult. I think that would fall on code enforcement, which is already pretty strapped and not, having a hard time keeping up. Also, I had a question about what does it look like for doing construction at night and the folks that use the bright lights that at night with construction, and that's to keep traffic flowing during the day, et cetera. Also, all reference to Highway 36, that mountain out there is aglow at night because it's a safety issue. What does all that look like?
That would be exempt. I mean, that's something that is done by Caltrans. We couldn't begin to regulate that.
Okay. And the expense of if we incorporate sports fields in the unincorporated area, because most of what we've been talking about here are in incorporated areas, are very small schools like, Southern Humboldt. The expense, I don't know if they have the money to do that. Does that mean they can't play at night? What does that look like?
Well, I don't think we want to do something that is so difficult that people can't do it, because obviously there's a demand for there to be athletic fields, for there to be recreational opportunities, and some of those are well done at night. I think as Ms. Megan tried to point out, that our objective isn't to say no, it's really to say yes, but do it without spilling light into other places.
Okay, well, those are my questions and comments for at the moment. Anybody else on my board? Supervisor Madrone?
I very much appreciate this work. It's been talked about for, years, and it wasn't easy, so thank you for the work to do that. I will say that the majority of my complaints in my district come from neighbors that have somebody that has one of those big spotlights, especially motion detector, and it's not shielded and it's not directed just at their property. Literally, their bedrooms are lighting up and their property as well. So it seems like this ordinance has things in it that would help with that would provide requirements for shielding and, making sure that whatever kind of light is there is either soft light and or shielded and or directed just at the front porch or at front of the garage, but not onto their neighbor's property. So I think that's great. I understand people have concerns about security and safety, but as was mentioned, it's shown that the brighter the light, the less security, which is quite interesting in its own way. So I support the ordinance. There can always be some improvements. I look forward to whatever recommendations this board might make in regards to that, but I just want to thank staff for their efforts and the Planning Commission for their hard work in reviewing all this and considering, rural areas versus urban, all these various elements. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a clarifying question with what Supervisor Madrone said? Isn't that trespass light already addressed without this ordinance?
No.
No, so it's added into this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Supervisor Arroyo?
Thank you. So the cities of Eureka and Arcata do have lighting ordinances. They are less detailed, but I would say they refer back to, in the city of Eureka's case, because I was there while we developed it, the International Dark Sky Association requirements and the Green Building Standards Code. So it is similar to ours, if less detailed, but it does specify downward directed lights, and also gets into foot candles in lieu of lumens. The world of lighting is very complicated, but 20 foot candles is approximately equivalent to 2,000 lumens, and so you're illuminating sort of a 20 square foot area with a 2,000 lumen bulb, et cetera, although there's lots of variability. So I do think our recommendations are in line with, even if they're more detailed, with the cities of Eureka and Arcata, which both have slightly different variations, with respect to how high lights can be mounted, and they do make exceptions for athletic field lights used within a school campus or public or private park, and low intensity string lights, so as well as seasonal lighting displays. So I think there's a lot of similarity and alignment and some differences, and also those ordinances are not universally followed, and it is complaint driven, as ours would be, but it does give us the opportunity, if there is a persistent problem, to say that this is either in compliance or not in compliance with our lighting ordinance, and it gives people the sideboards for future development and for, frankly, just being a considerate neighbor, whether it's a residential use or something else. So I do think I appreciate that this has found a good middle ground. There has been that public workshop process, and I know through getting lots of comments at each stage that people have been engaged with this. So, it's one of the many, many, many things we wanted to implement from our general plan, and I appreciate that staff have taken it on. I don't really see this as problematic in any way. I would say we're a bit behind in certain ordinances of our neighboring counties and other counties around the state. And so it's good for us to have this, even if over time we tweak it later once we figure out how it's working. It's really good for us to have simple and straightforward standards for things like lighting, and in the future, things like noise. So I appreciate staff's work on this. I appreciate the Planning Commission's work. It sounded like it was universally supported. I am interested to hear from my colleagues about how we might address the concerns in the coastal zone with respect to lighting and environmental health. So I'd like to hear a little bit more detail about what that might look like to incorporate that, or whether we want to move forward with this today and then study that issue and see how we might address it later. Either is fine with me, and I am also very supportive of us proceeding with a street lighting ordinance too.
Supervisor Bohn?
The only thing on the street lighting ordinance is, which is fine, they've changed the street lights in my neighborhood, and they're about half as bright as they used to be, and closer to the ground, and a lot less, I guess, a problem to the neighborhood, even though they were never a problem before. I would like to make sure that we are on the same page as having separate rules for each segment of government, county, state, everything else. It's pretty hard for people that do jobs, maintain, buy in bulk, which saves money. I like to buy up in Humboldt County. They use yada, yada, yada. I can buy 2,400, and then I've got replacements, new constructions, and everything else. And then we have a certain amount of, I don't know how many people crossed over the bridges when they first changed to the LED, and says, what the hell are those things? They were strange, they were weird, but they were going through a federal wildlife area, and they met all the demands. So they, saved all the egrets out there and all the other birds out there. So that was great. And you still got it crossed. But with that, I think if we have some uniformity with our neighbors, rather than, because I've never heard somebody that's doing a construction job or doing any type of development or anything, build, low-income housing or anything else, says, I love working by 7 sets of rules. And even now, we're changing the rules to build more low-income housing. Let's pull back on the environmental regulations for those. And I'm going, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. But I'm just saying, we need all levels of housing. So if we could be somewhere on the same page as our neighbors, so we're doing the same thing on a lot of this stuff, I think would be probably advantageous to the people that we're sitting up here, you know, trying to represent, but also the people that are probably doing a lot of the efforts to make it a better place to live.
Just 1 second there. So what does enforcement look like, and where's the funding going to come from?
So enforcement comes in this ordinance through 2 primary forms. One is when there's new construction. As part of our normal review of the plans, the lighting would be reviewed. It should be 5 minutes. I mean, if they give us the information that we've called out in the ordinance, that's not a hard review. If there are violations of the ordinance, then it's going to be like any other code enforcement matter. We are going to have to spend some time talking to the property owner, finding out what they have, letting them know what the solution is, and hopefully they will voluntarily just make the change to stop the violation or trespass.
So construction prior to this ordinance, are people going to be required to conform now, or is that going to be exempt?
No, construction that is in place is exempt. The only time that we would get into a code enforcement situation with this is when, as the ordinance identifies, is a lighting nuisance that is specifically defined in the ordinance, and a nuisance basically is something that makes it hard for somebody else to enjoy their property. And the examples that we gave at the Planning Commission are, you know, Charlie's example where you've got somebody with a spotlight that is just coming in. We've got 2 or 3 of these complaints right now. Spotlight coming into their house. They can see the shadow, their own shadow on their wall inside their house from somebody else's light on an adjoining piece of property. That makes it hard for them to enjoy their property. That's by definition a nuisance. And then we would be working with them to, if they can put a shield on it, most lights can be tilted down, so either shielded or redirected.
And so what is the policy or plan to make people comply, and what does that look like?
Well, so I think we would stay with what our normal approach, our written approach is first education. Talk about what the issue is. And, you know, we also, as part of that, have to understand, is this really a nuisance or not? Because, you know, I probably have lights around me in the house where I live that shine on into our yard, which is a light trespass, but that's not necessarily a nuisance because it doesn't really adversely affect the ability to live there. So there may be lights that shine over property lines. That's not a nuisance. That is not going to be pursued as a violation. It's really only those egregious situations where there are lights that really affect people's ability to enjoy their property.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Wilson, are you moving on to the coastal, or?
Well, no, I have just some clarifying questions around.
Okay,
some of
I
the
do
things
want
that
to,
we discussed.
I think that we need a 5-minute break, but can we do that now? Would that be okay? So we're going to take a 5-minute break and then come right back. Okay, thank you.
Roger. So I had 2 things. I went 2 commitments. For me, I would have 2
Where's the button? Ago. Okay, we're gonna, we took a little longer, but thanks for allowing us a little break. And we're gonna get back at it, and we were with Supervisor Wilson.
So I have to wash down a cookie. Okay, great, good conversation. I think I think we're gonna get somewhere here. I just want to address sort of the question about I do have my own question around the interjurisdictional element. There's this line in the ordinance that says, if there's any other law, we don't, but what does that mean, our ordinance? Because we have some jurisdictions that are say, that can create ordinance that are still under our land use authority. So where does that, how do we fit into it? How does that work?
I think that probably primarily would relate to a question that was asked earlier, like Caltrans would be an example of doing emergency work.
But what about a services district?
No, they'd still be subject to this.
That's not clear in that it's an any other ordinance, because they're ordinance creators.
Are they?
I think so. Think about the Harbor District, for instance.
Well, Harbor District does have zoning ordinance standards that are over the bay, anywhere over the high water line where our zoning would not cover there, so there would not be a conflict there.
Okay, but what about on land and on their properties?
On land and on their properties, then our ordinances would apply.
Well, this sentence is, other laws or ordinances may have different requirements for specific applications and may conflict with these regulations. In such cases, those laws or ordinances shall govern.
I think what we were trying to get at there, and maybe this could be a little bit more clear, is that
I know what you're trying to get at, but I'm just going at the specifics of what was said, of what's written here.
we were looking to address some other laws and ordinances actually within the county that have specific regulations. For instance, the cannabis ordinance is very specific about light escape from greenhouses. There are regulations relative to signs and the brightness of signs.
Could we insert the word county after other?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that a lot, because as you know, someone could be like, that's not what's written there. And so I appreciate that. And speaking to that, in regards to other jurisdictions, and I'll just speak to the city of Arcata and the city of Eureka, they do have lighting language in their ordinances. They are a bit more vague, but when referring to Dark Skies International, if you were to just align our ordinance with Dark Sky International, we would be considered weaker. Not a lot weaker, but definitely weaker. And so, so it's hard to, it's really on the implementation as to whether or not those jurisdictions, and again, I think Dark Skies standards are referred to in the Arcata standards as well. Part of the problem that they're having, though, is that because it's not very specific, what happens is, whether it's in the design phase or in the contractor phase, there's a certain I'm not going to I think willful ignorance is too far to go on that, but there's certainly sometimes what happens, and we've seen it, I know I've seen it in Arcata, where things get built and installed, and then the city, and then someone complains, and the city's like, hey, this says it's supposed to be done dark skies, and there's an assumption that either both the designer and the contractor knows what those are, but then they just look at that and then just install whatever whatever's been standard and has not met that. including city projects. So I'm not going to say it's just, on the private side. So this is helpful. This is kind of, in some ways, a bit more easily applicable so that people can see it and don't have to go look at the dark sky standard, especially when the dark sky standards can change, too.
Thank you for recognizing that. That was an objective of this ordinance, is to make it extremely clear.
Yeah, and so this does, in many ways, while it may, if you put it side by side with the Dark Skies International Standard, may be a little bit weaker. In some ways, it's a bit more implementable. So I appreciate that. So in some ways, although we may not see as much application within those other jurisdictions, they do have it on the books that it's supposed to be done. And I have heard from staff at City of Arcata, they're looking to our ordinance and what comes out of it to look at updates to their own lighting ordinance as well. And this is kind of where it's like, do you lead or do you follow? And I think in this case, I think it's important that the county lead because we're next up to bat, I guess you'd say. So I appreciate that. And I also, coming out of this process, it would be great, and I don't know how we do this necessarily, but there does need to be some education. It really feels like we're looking at basing what we're doing on mostly on dark sky international standards. We have a couple jurisdictions that enumerate it but don't necessarily have a functional way to implement it that's very strong. But at the same time, it seems like, and especially speaking to Supervisor Bohn's, concern, which is we need more of those things on. If we're asking people to do these things, we need more of those things on the shelves, and we need more of those things in the supply line. And definitely, the more you have, the less they cost. And so I think it's important that we have some way to both educate contractors, designers, which I think for the most part, the architectural profession knows about this stuff, but a lot of designers aren't architects and they're just doing their job. And then also I would say, like, it would be great if we're letting our hardware stores know that, hey, these meet dark sky compliant or are compliant with county and city ordinances, so people aren't buying stuff off the shelf and then putting it up and then their neighbor's like, hey, what the heck is that? And then they didn't know. It would be great if people could be educated before they make the decision, so they make the right decision when it's cheapest and easiest to do so, both for us and for them. So I don't know how we do that, but it would be great if there was a way we could.
We often do educational campaigns. I think this one, what you're asking for, goes a little further, which is not a problem, which is to get out. I mean, educating contractors, architects, designers, pretty easy.
Right.
Those are our common constituents. Educating the public, we can do press releases and things like that, but beginning to put things in stores, working with store owners, giving them some resources so that they can educate not only themselves, their employees, but also their clients would be very helpful.
And who doesn't love the person in the worker in the hardware store that has all the information. Right. I mean, it's very, very helpful. Okay, so going through, I'm just going to start with some concepts for changes that we discussed and see where those land and see where we can go. So the first one we just talked about was basically in 105.123, which is adding the word county, so we know specifically that's there, that's in there. Going to the translucent material, which would seem to be sort of I would say removing that for coastal for sure. But the question I have around is one more time, just tell me how how the resources are protected from this. I'm talking about like biological resources and night sky.
So it's a different quality of light that comes out of the warmer light spectrum.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is get it as far to the left as possible. The far, far right would be the blue light, the very cold light, the very high intensity light, the LEDs that you're talking about. The translucent lights are typically they provide light, but they don't create the glare around them. If you go to other places, look at some of the light standards that are being changed out. There's a place in Reading I was just looking at not long ago where some of their bulbs, you can tell, have been changed out.
Yep.
They have gone to the very warm light.
Yep.
It kind of creates a more of an orangish color rather than the very bright blue that's coming out of some of the other lights.
Could this be, at least on an institutional level, minimally, but if there's a choice to do this translucent choice, could that be timed? Could be, say, like, oh, I got to turn that off after 10 p.m. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, because it's kind of like the string lights, and sort of the way that it just kind of covers the neighborhood. Is it possible that could go to only till 10 if you have a translucent, and then, do you see what I'm saying?
That would be really hard. I think that we're just gonna, if we were to do that, it's not a horrible idea, but it'd be hard to implement, hard to enforce.
Okay.
Because a lot of these we'd probably see, and given the example that Rhiannon has up right now, is that, if somebody does this in their front door.
Their porch light.
Yeah, their porch light. We're going to tell them they can't turn the porch light on after 10 if somebody comes to their door?
Well, no, they certainly can if they have it downward. If they choose the other version, yes, they can keep it on all night if they have it downward facing. But if they have it facing out into the street, then 10 p.m.
Well, we're still saying that it can't illuminate the area that's either unintended to be illuminated. There can't be light trespass. There can't be light above, glowing above the fixture.
Okay.
All of those are still there. It's just whether or not there is a full shield around it becomes the question.
I'm not quite satisfied with that, but that's okay. I'm going to move on because I think in terms of like removing that from the coastal zone, I think will be helpful, and we won't hear back about it that way. Then going into sort of the exemptions, separating out just for flags as opposed to statues and other objects, monuments. So can we just make that exemption just for flags?
Yes.
Okay. And then the string.
And I'm interpreting that as being the United States flag. Only.
Yes. Not all. Yeah, not just like any old flag. I think official. I don't. You guys can work on that, get that language correct, but please, by all means.
Just the state flag is supposed to be illuminated too if they're flying together. And there's a flag code is kind of complicated, but we could refer to lighting standards as recommended in the U.S. flag code. Yes. That would be easy because that evolves sometimes, not too often, but sometimes. And I don't particularly care if people are allowed to illuminate another nation's flag but I think U.S. flag code covers it as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. I really appreciate it because it is that there is stuff written about that, and so we don't need to reinvent that. String lights, can we limit that to 10 p.m.?
Yes.
Great. We're going to remove the whole athletic field, or I guess you'll keep it in here for now, but then it will be addressed in a future ordinance. Or how do you want to do that? Or amendment?
I would recommend, you could do it either way. You could leave it there and we'll come back with something, or you could remove it and we'll come back with something. It's just your preference whether or not you want an exemption to continue to be in the code.
Let's remove it and bring it back. And I do think that what Supervisor Bohn is saying is real about the 10 p.m. element to that. And I do want to emphasize, this isn't about dimming the field. Just really clear about that. This is not about dimming the field. That field, you know, when people are playing ball on those fields, they should be well lit, and that's really important. This is just about light trespass and our ability to control that through shielding or whatever that may be. So I think that that's real. And then the motion detector. So we have a. Why do we have an exemption for motion detected lighting? Can you remind me, like, how does that?
Most of the motion detected lighting are particularly for residential, are above the 1,100 lumens. And
Why is that? And why is that necessary?
because they come on just for a period of time to illuminate an area, and then they go back off. I can't explain all the rationale for that, but
Okay.
we've looked at that. And typically they range from 3,000 lumens to over 5,000 lumens.
Okay, and they would only be on for 5 minutes maximum.
5 minutes maximum. And but they also cannot be triggered from outside the property.
Mm-hmm.
They also can't spill over onto other properties. And one of the other things that I mentioned earlier that we were debating is whether or not, you know, they should be oriented so that they don't produce a glow in the night sky.
How do we do that?
On the top in 105.1.4, where it talks about exemptions, we would say it does not allow light trespass on neighboring properties, does not illuminate the night sky, and does not illuminate for the inland area, sensitive biological areas, and the coastal area does not illuminate ESHA.
I appreciate that. I think that minor amendment would make that better. Although, I mean, just as a reminder to folks, like very bright lights, while you might feel more secure in that space, doesn't make your cameras work any better and can make shadows much more intense.
Can I give you a personal example?
Sure.
My wife often goes to work at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
I go out and open the gate for her.
Yes.
There's often skunks in the yard.
Yes.
I
Damn.
really appreciate that motion-activated light being on so that I'm not walking into a black and white furry thing.
Yes, 100%.
Down the end of the driveway.
I got it. But we're talking about the intensity of that light at the moment.
We've got two of them that come into play. One right at the gate, one at the house.
Yes.
And the one at the house gives me enough light to get to the gate.
Okay. And you got to run. You only got 5 minutes.
It's often off by the time I turn around and I'm heading back up to the house. But at that point, I'm okay because there's nothing there.
Well, I appreciate the change that we talked about in 105.1.4 that you suggested that I think will help minimize that that potential impact. Let's see, and then we have parking lots in here. I would like that probably addressed in that update so that we're blending well parking lots and street lighting. Does that make sense or does that not make sense?
It could. I think that what we tried to do here is really encourage parking lot lighting as a distinct type of lighting, to be lower profile, to have a warmer light.
Yeah.
But we can bring it back because I heard what Supervisor Bohn said.
Oh yeah, 100%. I want to actually emphasize something that Supervisor Bohn said about motion detection in parking areas. I was just walking on the campus of Cal Poly recently, and they have lights that are very, very dim, but when you walk under them, they brighten up. It's very cool, actually. I'm just saying, like, it feels safer. You know, it just feels like, it's like you almost feel like someone's paying attention, even though, of course, it's automated. But I just want to say, like, I think however we can encourage that type of technology, and also it's efficient, right? It's like you're using less electricity. And you can see where the lighted pathway is, and it looks kind of dim, but when you walk into it, everything brightens up. I think that's I know that's recommended by Dark Skies, and so I don't know how we do that in this amendment or.
We'll bring it back as part of the
Okay.
street light. Yep.
Okay, well, those are the changes that I've enumerated, or whatever, that I'm just making a suggestion for. I'm gonna just make a motion that we approve this ordinance with those changes that I went through, and I'm happy to, discuss changes to those changes or other changes as we move forward, but I just wanna like get that on the record and move forward. That's my motion. And I'm looking for a second.
Cheryl, second.
Comments, Supervisor Bohn?
You know, we keep talking about motion detectors, and I'm going to tell you, they come on bright, they do, but I can tell you, if you have a dog, they bark at certain times too. But I can always tell when the motion detectors go on. It used to be up until about 2 weeks ago, 9:12 every night, the neighbor's lights all went on because the neighbor walked his dog at that time. It was like clockwork. I've got a lady that walks her cat at 8:15. She hasn't been a problem, walks her cat. It hasn't been a problem lately, but it will as it's starting to get darker sooner. The idea is when the bright lights come on, 95% of the time, if it's somebody shouldn't be there, they're not going to hide behind your car or in the shadows for 5 minutes and wait till the light goes off and then wait for it to come. They're going to leave the area. That's the whole purpose of security lighting. So there are people that need that security. We've got a great sheriff's department. We have great local municipal, but we still have to have them. And anything we can do to help them, that would be appreciated. As the ball field lighting, the athletic field lighting, can we just address the ball field lighting to be addressed as needed? Because if somebody's going to build an athletic field in this day and age, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big, big deal. And it's probably going to be tied into another school or something like that. But to have staff spend time on something, how many athletic fields have been built in the last 25 years? You're right. So I'm just saying, to build the whole ordinance on something that's probably not going to happen in this day and age, I think is so address as needed. So,
sorry, I can make a suggestion that gets to exactly that, which is...
Okay, as soon as I'm done, you can.
Yeah.
I gave you yours. The other thing, on the coastal, we're talking so much about the coastal, why don't we just accept the Coastal Commission's lighting ordinance? So we're not in conflict, we're in agreement, take a look at it. I mean, it is the Coastal Commission, and we're worried about, and God knows they worry about every little resource that we have and, you know, do a fabulous job at it. But with that being said, can we accept the Coastal Commission ordinance and then, you know, even the local, the LCPs and stuff, and go with that instead of reinventing the wheel and then having a variance that somebody has, why went off this variance? Well, that's the old variance. We got a new variance now. Is that possible, Mr. Ford?
I don't know that the Coastal Commission has.
They do.
They do?
Yep. The California Coastal Commission lighting ordinance, specifically section 142.04740 of the Coastal Overlay Zone, regulates outdoor lighting to minimize light pollution and protect dark skies, particularly in areas adjacent to open space. The ordinance includes requirements for shielding, directing light fixtures, limits on lumen output, and restrictions on uplighting in certain areas. Damn, that's what we've been talking about.
I would really need to look at that before I responded to
I fully
anything.
agree. It should be looked at. It was something, you know, as we're looking at these things and trying to, you know. So if it's here, we should, you know. They also enforce it. If you read farther, it also says enforce. I found this on Sunday. And with that being said, there's certain things. I mean, it's fine. We can approve this the way it is, but let's not put stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. Because again, as we sit up here and try to regulate everything for the populace out there, no one's calling me going, you guys don't have enough rules and regulations. Can you add a few more? So, I mean, the whole idea is we need to make something that's fluid, workable, somewhat nimble, because right now we have architects and engineers that don't know, aren't aware. We definitely have situations where we have contractors that aren't aware, because a lot of the electrical contractors are 2 or 3 man shows and smaller. There's a few larger ones. So the educational part, maybe we run that through the Humboldt Builders Exchange or something, because they reach out and touch instead of going door to door. So, and with that, I agree, the little guy at the hardware store, that little guy at the hardware store ain't around anymore. Trying to convince 40 employees at a normal hardware store, the lighting ordinance is going to be a big, big deal. But we know maybe we could do an educational. I don't know. So those are some of the things. I think, you know, we're putting the cart way in front of the horse, because is it workable? Is this workable? It looks good on paper, but there's a lot of holes in this that I don't know if it's actually applicable. Sounds great, but I mean, we should be looking at some of these things, and again, working with our neighbor municipalities. I mean, you know.
Is there any, do you want an amendment to the current motion?
I don't think we can pass an amendment, right? I don't think we can pass this right now because there's so many holes in it. And not holes, I think just fine tuning. We're adding stuff that, I mean, seriously, ball fields should be addressed when they're going to be built. You know, I mean, it's just, and I don't see any, you know, now in the urban or in the municipalities, we have, you know, Fortuna, we have Eureka High. McKinleyville just put in new lighting for their fields here a few years ago. So I'm just saying, how do we, you know, address those? And there is nobody building a private field in the next near future, so we're going to be dealing with agencies. So, and I know I'll get a lot of feedback on this, but it's just, that's my 20%, and that's exactly what it's worth.
I do want to say that, you know, addressing the hardware stores, because there's different ordinances in different municipalities, I don't think that's an issue or that we should do that. I think it's wasted energy, because unincorporated, Eureka, so forth and so on. I just think that's a bit of wasted energy. And I know Supervisor Wilson wanted to make a comment to Supervisor Bohn. Go ahead, and let's try to get this going and get a motion.
I think Supervisor Bohn brings up a really great point, and I think that just requiring having athletic fields just come back for a conditional use permit takes care of that. We'd be done, and then they would be reviewed at that time, and we wouldn't have to even bring it back as part of another. So I would add that to the list. So there it is. It just, they come back for conditional use permit. Done. Yeah, I think, and in many ways, like I said, ours is a bit more specific than the other two larger of our largest jurisdictions, city jurisdictions, even though it's a little less, actually, you know, from a standards perspective, it's a little less, but it's much more specific. And I will say that I think if I was a contractor, I would want it to be more specific, and then less so, because again, the dark skies ordinance or dark skies standards can change without you knowing about it. And so I think this is a decent standard, and I stand by that, with the one change that addresses Supervisor Bohn's concern about athletic fields. Thanks.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I also wanted to note that if we're looking to our neighboring jurisdictions for sort of model language, the City of Arcata's outdoor lighting ordinance has a couple of places where it just says as determined by the director. So in one case, it's like, no permanently installed lighting shall blink, flash, or be of unusually high intensity or brightness as determined by the director. So it allows that sort of to be interpreted. We could consider a similar approach for the outdoor sporting locations, given that there really aren't so many of them. I don't know if you want that to be on your plate, Director Ford, but that is one potential approach. Or we could do a conditional use permit as suggested here. Do you have? I do have one other matter to bring up, but I wondered if you have thoughts on that.
Athletic fields are a big deal. I mean, they're important. They're an important part of the community. And we do not want to discourage them. Obviously, adding in a conditional use permit adds time and cost to it, but it does allow the community to be involved in the review process. I really do not like, just as a matter of principle, standards that aren't clear and are subject to interpretation, because it comes down to things getting applied differently, perhaps. And I would rather have people be able to know exactly what the expectation is up front. And it's not that I'm afraid to make decisions, I'm not, but I think it's harder for people if they don't know what the expectations are.
Great, thank you. Okay, that sounds good to me, so I think that recommendation is good. And then I wanted to come back to the lighting in the coastal zone and it being part of the local coastal program. So there's no statewide coastal commission ordinance. There's model ordinance language that they have on lots of things, but it doesn't appear that that's the case, and maybe Supervisor Wilson could explain that a little bit further to us. But these are all local jurisdictions that submit their ordinances to the Coastal Commission for approval, and there is certain guidance on how to do that. So as long as we've aligned with the guidance that they've generally set forth, and it's intended to be tailored to each community based on their needs. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts.
Well, I will say that when you have your local ordinance, and especially when it's more specific, it's much more helpful to the local jurisdiction after approval through the Coastal Commission, because it's less likely to be appealed to the commission. So that gives the local jurisdiction much more authority and ability to do what it wants to do. So in general, I would say more specificity, the better from that perspective, because again, the local jurisdiction has that authority. So.
So Fortuna is in the process of developing a light ordinance, and Rio Dell has a light ordinance, but also is saying the city is subject to the Humboldt County outdoor lighting ordinance, which is being developed to address light pollution. And so I think they're going to adopt to, it looks like, what Humboldt County does. I'm wondering, have we talked to other jurisdictions to see if they would be wanting to maybe adopt what we're doing as well, or, since I think Arcadia and Eureka are a little lighter than what Humboldt County is?
We've not had that discussion.
Okay. Is there any plans to do that? Because I think if we're addressing light ordinances, it doesn't just affect unincorporated area. We're trying to deal with a problem that's bigger than just unincorporated. So is it common that we don't, or?
It's fairly common that we don't.
Okay.
I mean.
Because it's not our jurisdiction, I understand that.
And yeah, there.
I'll reference to the nitrous oxide ordinance that we are implementing now. We met with all the city managers because Mike and I felt that it was really pertinent to address the problem wholly in Humboldt County, not just in the unincorporated areas. So I just think sometimes we could move the bar a little bit.
If that is the direction of the board, obviously we will do that. That's not a common practice.
Okay.
Just simply because in a lot of cases there are jurisdictional preferences.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to synthesize land use regulations between all jurisdictions.
Okay.
Nitrous ordinance is a little bit different because that's more of a public health issue that everybody can get behind, especially when it's being implemented by DHHS.
Okay.
That goes across those boundaries. We don't.
Okay. And then the last thing that I don't feel has been addressed here is that, and I want someone to clarify the motion before we move forward, but the enforcement portion of it, it is going to cost more money. It is going to involve code enforcement, which seems to, have a lot on their plate right now. And so it's going to be complaint driven, correct? Mm-hmm. And who is going to be I mean, I think it's really important that we recognize that sometimes complaint-driven can be a pissed-off neighbor that wants to deal with something that isn't even related to a light ordinance, and how are we going to address that?
The process that we should follow from a code enforcement standpoint is that when we receive a complaint, we make sure that we first understand the complaint, understand the nature of the complaint, and then we will compare that to what the ordinance says, understand what the violation is within an ordinance, and then send a letter to the property owner that has the alleged violation, inform them that we've received a complaint about this very specific thing, violating this very specific ordinance, with and then identify what the solution to that is. Ideally, what happens there is that a property owner will call us, and that is in the letter, an invitation to make contact. We'll have a conversation with them, and they'll say, yeah, you know, I didn't adjust that down, and I can go do that. I'll go turn my light down and make sure that it's focused more down rather than shining out into my neighbor's yard. And if that happens, that can be resolved that easily. These shouldn't be hard to resolve.
Okay. And with that being said, you think your budget for code enforcement is not going to have to increase, or is going to have to increase with more, because we're just doing more and more. And just, you know, it's a thought process as we move forward with our budget not being that healthy.
I don't see this being a huge new burden for
Okay.
code enforcement.
Okay, I do want to say, before you call code enforcement, before you call the planning department, before you deal with that as a neighbor, go knock on your neighbor's door and ask them to turn their light down. It's neighborly to do that instead of sticking code enforcement on them. It works way better. So, and then could you, as what you think the motion is, tell us what we're voting on?
So my understanding of the motion is to basically adopt the Planning Commission recommendation to adopt both the coastal and inland versions of the ordinance with a modification to section 105.1.2.3 to insert the word county in front of ordinance and ordinance and regulation. There was a, this is not clear, relative to the translucent materials. The inclination seems to be to remove that from the coastal version of the ordinance. Relative to exemptions, we're going to take out statues and only allow exemption for flags subject to the U.S. flag code. Relative to the exemption for string lights, that's going to be those are going to be limited to 10 p.m. at night. Relative to athletic fields, that was modified to include the requirement for a conditional use permit to light athletic fields. Relative to 105.1.4, so that is going to modify the exemption definition to add to, there cannot be light trespass onto neighboring properties. There cannot be light trespass into the night sky, or in the inland version to biological resources, and in the coastal version into ESHA. As part of the parking lot lighting, that's not going to change right now, but we are going to bring that back as part of the street light ordinance. And one of the things we're going to look at there is a requirement that there be dimming technology associated with it, that it goes, the volume of the lighting goes down at a certain point, but can come back up when it's motion activated. That's my understanding of the motion.
Supervisor, go ahead.
And then that would also include modifying the maximum illumination to 1,100 lumens for residential and 3,200 lumens for agriculture, commercial, and industrial.
And that is going to be going forward and not be retroactive.
That is correct.
And that is specifically in there, and we're not going to have a problem with that if it's not in there?
Can you get back to the pre-existing lighting? So under pre-existing lighting, it says any outdoor lighting fixture that was installed prior to the adoption of these regulations and was consistent with the zoning regulations at the time of installation may remain in its installed form, subject to the following, and then it talks about what a nuisance would be, or if there's substantial changes to those, that it would then be reinstalled in conformance with these regulations.
Okay. Supervisor Wilson.
Thank you. Appreciate that outline. Just a couple questions. One is, when can we expect the streetlight ordinance or update to the ordinance coming back to us?
By the end of the calendar year.
By the end of the calendar year. Okay, I appreciate that. And then the next question I have is, the first comment we had today was about a bright light going into a public right-of-way, not necessarily a neighbor. Do you see what I'm getting at? So I saw that addressed in here, public right-of-way. Is that ubiquitously part of that list in here?
That would still be like trespass.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about not just neighbors, but also just in our public spaces as well.
Well, and I think there's also language in here talking about lights that interfere with people driving.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate that. Well, with that, I'm all right with the way things are here. So
Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you for enumerating all that. That's really helpful, and I'm happy with what you've said. I do want to note that there's design standards, separate design standards for illumination of signs as part of our sign ordinance. So I'm just recalling one public comment I got about this was asking if it was really exempt to have a light fixture illuminating an object mounted on a pole, pedestal, or platform. They were perceiving that as applying to signage, but signage is separately covered under the design standards for our approved both coastal and inland ordinances. So just mentioning that, and I'm happy to proceed with the vote whenever y'all are ready.
Anyone else? Okay, Kaylee.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Bohn?
No.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Chair Bushnell?
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So we are going to go to our last item today, which is our closed session, and we will go to County Council.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. It is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Sections 54954.5 and 54957 in order to consider the public employee performance evaluations for the positions of the Agricultural Commissioner, Public Defender, and County Administrative Officer. It is also the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.8 to grant authority to its negotiators regarding the price and terms of payment for the purchase of real property located at 515 J Street, Eureka, California, 95501, assessor parcel number 001-193-007. The county's negotiators are identified as Tom Matson, Humboldt County Public Works Director, and any duly authorized designees thereof. The parties with whom the county may negotiate are identified as John Stone and Larry O. Doss, and any duly authorized designees thereof. Finally, it is the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 in order to discuss existing litigation in the case of April James et al. Versus Matthew Kendall et al. Case number 3:25-CV-03736.
Thank you. We will go out to public comment. We'll go to Zoom on Zoom first.
There is none, Chair.
And we'll go to in the room.
Did wish to make a comment on number 4. In your property acquisitions, you're going to be doing, things can be very complicated. One tool that's been suggested you might want to have in your tool belt is somebody who's really an expert on title and making deals on things that are very complicated. In past, I would turn to somebody like Debbie Provolt. You might want to get her somehow on board so that you can make these things go smoothly. You're negotiating a certain deal there. My understanding, there is a dispute that could be settled with expert testimony or expert input. You also have Tiffany Hunt upstairs, who is also an expert on these things. And I highly recommend you get that available for your tool belt to get these jobs done. I mean, deals is what I do. And when I do property things, I want to have an expert that makes things happen or not. That's plain and simply how it works. I also wish to make comment a little bit in general, but it's also specifically to your litigation number 5. When you go into these things, and I hope that you're aware that your ability to keep your costs down on any litigation, you need to understand it is not in the best interest of the outside litigants or outside firms you hire to settle quickly and get this case done. That's not how they make their money. I feel it's imperative on this case or things like that, that you should have in-depth staff in county counsel's office. I think that you should have, my understanding is Joel does some of these things. I hear his name continually. But your county counsel and any assistant county counsel should be qualified as trial lawyers. And that's like in construction, to be able to instruct people and work with these things, you have to do it yourself. So highly recommend that sometime in the future, you look toward finding staff and promoting staff that has trial lawyer experience. So we're not paying all this money out for these people who really don't have any really motive to settle your cases for minimal cost. In the past, we've had some of those people involved. It's been quite successful if you take the history and talk to people in the past what's happened in the county. And without that particular thing on all these settlements you're talking about here, you're at a major disadvantage compared to people who do have that experience. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So how long do you anticipate, County Council?
I would say an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay, so it is 12:10 right now, and we are going to take a 15-minute break before we go into closed session to give the board some time to stretch, and then we will anticipate 2 hours. I believe it will be 2 hours, and then we'll be back out here. We'll be in recess. Time, apologies, and we are back out of closed session, and we're going to go to County Council for report out.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. There was no reportable action taken with regard to items K1 through K4. With regard to item K5, the board voted unanimously to authorize the Humboldt County Counsel's Office to enter into a joint defense and confidentiality agreement with the other named defendants in the case of April James et al. Versus Matthew Kendall et al. Case number 3:25-CV-03736.
Okay, thank you. Reminding everybody that the Humboldt County Fair is happening, and you should, if you are looking for something to do, please attend. I saw Natalie went already, and we are adjourned. Thank you.